you want to, we don't have to talk about E3.
Yeah, we've already
Hyped it up.
decided.
I don't know if anybody would notice if we didn't.
No, they know. See if any of them joins the chat here.
Are we live now?
We're live.
Oh, snap. Okay.
So the turntables.
So the turntables. We are live. Twitch.tv/PSVG for some sweet hangs, y'all. Y'all.
Come hear me crunch on Jolly Ranchers.
Oh, is that what it is? You're chewing. You're gonna chip your teeth. They're hard candies. That's dangerous territory.
What are you, 70?
Dude, I have chipped my teeth. I don't have any trust in my. I chipped so many. I was just trying to open up a water bottle and I chipped a tooth. I was like, I'll just go like this a little. And Chelsea goes, yeah, that'll do you. That'll serve you.
That'll do it.
That'll learn you. It was right at the start of our vacation in San Francisco, so I was like, perfect. Let's take a lot of pictures here in San Francisco of my Dumb and Dumber tooth that I have now. Like I legit look like
I have a
Jim
chipped
Carrey.
tooth. I had a chipped tooth right there.
Oh man,
It's I have a natural, like a space, like a small space.
Same.
My mom
I have
had
a
it, my
giant
grandma had it.
space.
And then I got in a fight when I was 15, and the corner of my tip the corner tip of my tooth got chipped.
Oh my gosh, I want to talk about fights.
Oh no.
We should talk about fights.
Fight Club.
Okay, I'm gonna hit record actually on my audio, and we'll also go over to the PSVG Twitch.
Pour some rum.
I'll pop out the chat. Can I pop out your chat?
I have no idea. I've never done it.
Rebecca is here. I can
Really?
pop out your chat. Rebecca had a great cosplay of Rosalina. And I love me some Rosalina. I thought that was a great cosplay. Rosalina's a little underserved.
You should do more cosplay.
Me?
Yeah.
Chelsea and I did
On hot tub streams. You need to get a little kiddie pool.
I might get into some hot tub streams. I'm not gonna lie. I don't care. You know, I've only got so many more years in my youth, Donnie. This isn't it's only going downhill from here. I might as well start it now. My kids are actually outside right now. They've got a little pool thing going on, and Chelsea's doing the
hot tub.
Yeah, well, it is actually a bit of a hot tub because it's hot. It's warm water. She's filling up the tubs in the sink, walking them outside, pouring them in there. So the kids are enjoying that right now. It's actually a beautiful day. We actually had some sun. I got outside. I did some work.
Speaking of the sun, I'm sitting in the dark, but you can't tell I've got this rosy complexion.
Yeah,
I got a nice little burn going yesterday out on the lake.
Nice.
Yeah,
I like it, man. Dev in the chat says Sean with no hat and a beard. I showered. That was the biggest thing. And tomorrow morning is the shave day. Do you click on that for that to show up? Is that? I just noticed. I was on another podcast that we'll talk about, and noticed that was a cool thing. I don't think it was on Melon. It was on something similar.
Yeah,
I think that's really neat.
It's like Yard Barker or something like that. StreamYard.
Almost makes me wish I did more podcasts live. It's very cool.
Yeah, I like it.
So now I really like when I jump in and watch you do like Shaq or Empire every once in a while. I just thought it was like the first thing that I said or first thing somebody would say gets put up. No. That's you. Oh, you got pulling some ropes behind the scenes.
So as we're recording, if I see something that seems notable or a question or something, yeah, you shout out, highlight it, bring it up in the show.
Man, like I said, I kind of wish we did more. I wish that maybe one day in the future, the internet will allow us to do the Xbox Drive live while I actually drive around. But it's a lot of bandwidth. And we already have enough trouble with audio. Kind of skipping out and stuff. Like there's definitely like blinds.
5G.
Like, yeah. We need just blanket. We used to when I did the show with Dave back in the day, I was driving to a different job and it was predictable every time I was on. We called it the Silent Hill. Sean Capri 3 is genius. I'm a fan of the puns, and I'm realizing now I'm still kind of out of breath. I was working a little bit today, so we'll say cheers. We'll have a nice, at least one drink. Maybe clink. How long will that last? You clink. Okay, that's probably a good way to start. Let's cheers and we'll start this show.
Yeah, let's do it. Hey, Sean.
Johnny, I feel like I have a lot to learn from you.
Oh,
I've just learned how this whole melon app thing, like all the secrets that are kind of happening here, and it's like I mean, you know what? I actually feel about that for a lot of people. Not to put you on the spot too much, but do you ever want to like you have a lot of knowledge. That's why I wanted to do this show with you. I wanted to absorb some of the knowledge a little bit. I always enjoy that.
I'll try.
I mean, not anything specific in this moment that I'm like, teach me this, but I mean, that's
I did a little prep for this one, more than I've done for any show that we've done so far.
Have you?
Yeah, I sat in the hot tub for about an hour, and I was just kind of scrolling on my phone, going, "Oh yeah, let's jot that down." Yeah,
I noticed your BFF Jeff Grubb was doing a thing that I would love to do. I'm mad that I didn't think of this before him, because now I'll just be copying him. He was doing live watch-alongs of old E3 conferences.
Oh, that's not him. There's a lot of people who do that.
Well, I just saw him doing it, but anyways, I thought that was great. Like, and to watch it like with like our current, like this was I think just a couple of days ago.
Oh yeah,
that he did that.
There's I think Giant Bomb has done that. There's a lot of folks that do that. That's not
just go back in time.
Here's Rebecca, she says, me and my friends. Yeah, that's like I want to call it like a trend, but I don't. It might even be a trend. I think it's because it's been going on for some years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think,
well, especially last year, if I was ever going to think of it on my own, you would have thought last year I would have done it just to like fill in the gap a little bit.
Yeah, and it is fun to me to kind of live in hindsight with some of this stuff, because a lot of it, as I'm sure we'll talk about, sometimes you get swept up in the wave of your own excitement or your own wanting to be excited. You know, that you'll kind of let some stuff go.
Yeah, maybe. I was a little, I don't know, a little jealous, but yeah, E3 is upon us, man. I'm really excited, but I wanted to tell you before we jump into that. I spent most of the day outside today. I was scooping up rocks with a shovel, and I felt very manly, but as manly as I felt.
How big were these rocks?
It's gravel. It's like it's like along the side of my house. Like, I hate it because I can't take my lawnmower between the front yard and the backyard without like it getting like sunken. It's like quicksand. Anytime I want to take like a garbage bin or a wheelbarrow or anything like from front to back, I've got to trek across this like chasm of gravel. It's awful. And I don't understand. I was talking to Chelsea. I'm like, this is like standard. Everybody on the block has this, like this set of rocks.
I was going to say, it's either blocking off erosion and trying to hold soil in place from rain runoff,
I guess,
or it's a low-lying area and they filled it with rocks so it doesn't keep sinking,
or easier to take care of than grass, and because grass will die kind of in the
typically,
I don't know,
like especially if it's like somewhat uniform.
See, I need to learn this.
Typically you'll put that in there so like the dirt doesn't wash away, or like if you're trying to build up like an embankment, you'll fill like an embankment with rocks and then put some dirt in it.
Yeah, no, it's got to go. It's got to go.
It's got to go.
Part of it is where
a nice little bridge to walk over.
Yeah. Oh, that would actually be that. Actually, that's kind of what I was thinking because I still have to. This is a whole thing. I'm taking rocks away from right here, right beside my office here, which is basically where the dogs kind of take care of business, which is a huge reason why I want to get rid of it. Because you go back there to clean up the dog business and stuck to a rock, and it's a whole disaster. I hate it. I can't stand it. So I'm getting rid of all this stuff. But the whole reason I wanted to bring this up to you is not to share my manliness. It is to share my old manliness. Because the entire time I was doing this, I was really worried that one of whatever lift I was about to do, whether it was with the shovel or with the wheel, I'm like, that might be it. Like, that might be a rib knocked out of place or a disc slipped or something like that. It's like, this is the one. Okay, we're okay. Okay, we're being okay. I like super aware of my form and just making sure I wasn't overdoing it. And I realized in this day that I'm now over the hill. I think is what I realized, because up until this point, my dad would always warn me, like, watch your back. And I'm like, I'm good. I don't know what you're talking about. And maybe in the last couple of months, as I've had some back issues, like I was a little bit more aware of it, but it was like every move I better watch it. And that's what I'm like, okay, now I'm in my dad's generation now I'm with him. We can talk about aging bodies and all of that kind of good stuff. We can relate.
Yeah, you think you can like, go hard for decades, but no, you really can't. You got about 10, maybe 20 years, and then that's it. You've kicked the bucket.
Well, and you can't do anything. That's the thing. I was mindful of every move. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of reaching here. Like I'm kind of, my legs are a little straight here. Like I had to be very mindful of, maybe I just take a couple steps over. Maybe I bend my knees a little bit and just be more more aware. I guess it's real sad. And I still don't know if I'm doing it right. I still felt like I'll probably wake up tomorrow like I can't move, but I feel good now. I showered.
Just find some kids and pay them to do it.
That's what Chelsea said, actually.
I need you to move these rocks over there, and I will give you
That's
some
all
money.
it is. It's like I'm just moving rocks. The only thing that would have made it more almost like slave labor is like if I had like a pickaxe and I'm breaking them apart. Like there were some larger rocks that maybe I could have broken down into smaller rocks or push a rock up a hill, a boulder.
I'm not following that. I'm going to let you sit with that statement.
Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Doing pretty good, man.
Yeah. I'm worried about you, Donnie. I'm worried about you. I really am. You okay? Why? I don't know. You seem kind of down.
No. No, I'm not down. I'm not like that. I'm not in that space.
Yeah. You're busy.
I'm busy, and I'm just not like super into like this. I'm not really on the merry-go-round that we're on. That we do.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not playing the games, which makes me feel like I'm not bringing a lot to the podcast, which makes me like wonder why I'm podcasting if I shouldn't podcast. Like, so I'm just kind of in that, and more or less, I'm just kind of like just winging it.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I've got good co-hosts, that I can fill in and kind of carry the slack while I'm kind of, I don't know, lounging.
To be honest with you, and I don't like that. Like I want you to be like in a happy and excited place. I want you to be, happy what you're doing. But I'm also a little glad because this happens to me and I feel like it's like I'm the only one. So I'm actually glad because because I've been there.
To everybody.
It absolutely does.
It does.
It absolutely does.
Which is why I'm trying not to overreact or think. I'm trying not even to really think about it too much.
Yeah, so I keep bringing it up.
well, it's not that. It's that I'm more or less. I've seen other people go through like this issue, and I feel like they make it like a bigger issue than it is.
Yeah,
I'm just not really doing it right now. I'm just not into the game. Like I played a little more Resident Evil today. Just not really into the game. Like I just, so I'm not forcing it. I'm not dwelling on it. I'm just kind of coasting. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to coast a little bit. I think I've earned it.
Yeah.
I think so my listeners will give me a little bit of a break.
That's why I was taking it. That's what, like when I was going through it a little earlier this year, and it was especially around like the whole like revamp of Yumi Capri and everything. I'm like, I don't know what to do with all this stuff. But like I look over at you and you're like, you just go. Like you're just a train. This guy's not stopping. He's just going to do all the things. And I'm like, he's been going nonstop for years. So for you to kind of like hit this at this point, definitely, I don't know. It's good to be open about it as well.
I think that helps. And recording with Rebecca in particular really actually helps because she's always real quick to remind me. She's like, you don't have to, like, I think she told me long before she ever joined the show one time, I was kind of like, I'm not playing anything. I got to find something. And I think she said something. She was like, you don't have to play games to talk about them. And I was like, you're right. Like, you really don't. You really don't.
What a sage piece of advice.
You can. It's nice to, but like, do you have to? Nah, you really don't. You really don't.
Rebecca's in the chat says, I remember that. I remember I was on a flight. I can't remember where I was flying to. I was flying home from somewhere. I was listening to an old OKB's podcast, and this is back in the day. Blessing was on it. And just unapologetically, just like, he didn't even make it, like, really mention anything about it. He just kind of said, well, right now I'm playing whatever it was. And it was this 4-year-old game. He didn't go, I know I should be playing this, or like, I feel bad, blah, 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 blah. He didn't do any of that preface stuff. He just kind of like launched into like, I'm just playing this game from like 2012 or whatever the hell it was. And I'm like, that really struck me. I remember like, I got writing in my notepad on my phone. I'm like, what is that? Like, I feel like maybe it's a confidence that comes after a while of doing this stuff. I think the way that we approach podcasting changes over the years. There's probably, if you listen to yourself, you can transport your mind of like where you were at on the network.
Well, the opposite take would be to like dwell on it and then have like some sort of self-crisis, talk about like whether or not you should be doing it or not. And like, I don't want to go there. I don't like being in that place. And I don't like it when other people do it. I don't like hearing about it. So I know other people don't hear about it. So I'm just not even there. Like, I'm just coasting. It's like I have senioritis at the moment. I'm at school, but I am not doing anything. I ain't doing shit, Sean.
Oh, senior, like your last year. Okay.
Yeah, senioritis.
I thought you meant like what I was talking about before, my broken back.
No, I'm watching the clock. I'm like, well, I'm just going to wait for something to like, it's going to come back. It will.
Right.
But until then, I'm just going to hang out and, kind of ride on the coattails of Rebecca and Elaine and Garrett.
Yeah.
And yourself.
Yeah. Look at that. I like it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I can't remember what game it was. Ryan and I were playing, and I'm like, I was kind of going through the same thing, but I also said, people can take my opinion about whatever game it was, like with a grain of salt, because like I'm kind of just in the dumps right now. So it might not even be the game's fault. And I always I think I've been saying this for a long time, where embargoes kind of determine when people who provide coverage on games have to like then deliver the coverage on the game. It's like, that is such a personal thing.
It's tough.
And I've really come to learn and appreciate that whole notion of like, maybe numbers on review scores are a little silly, right? And I don't have an alternative to it. But I remember the first time I heard that, I'm like, well, that's the dumbest thing. Like,
they're
just
not
objectively,
they're completely silly.
And I've come full circle on this, like, right? I've come at least from where I started with that, because we were raised on review scores.
Yeah,
that's how you did it. And to hear somebody say, who was in the industry, I actually think the first time I heard it was from Marty Sleva from IGN years and years ago, because he hasn't even been at IGN for years now. But I thought that was kind of strange. Then I jump into this whole thing, and I'm like, that is kind of weird. Like, how do you put a number on your experience on the game? And that was just kind of like surface level getting into it. And the more I've kind of ruminated on this, it is my go-to example will continue to be probably for the next couple of years is Tell Me Why. If I reviewed that game when it came out, I would not have been as glowing about it as I was when I chose to play it. Like, when I chose to play it, was like, I was in the mood for that kind of game. I was in it. I gave it my full attention. But if I played Tell Me Why when it first came out, it would have been playing it to finish it, to talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the appreciation of art. I learned that when I was doing European art and literature in college. There was an entire chapter dedicated to how to find an appreciation and a respect for what you're like looking at and reviewing outside of its time. And like, it was a whole psychology as to like, do you put yourself in the shoes of the person that was there at the time? Do you look on it now with modern eyes and appreciate it for what they did without, having so many things that there's like a whole psychology to that. And that applies to everything. It doesn't, that's
maybe
music,
we should study that
games,
more.
Everything. There's entire psychology classes dedicated to that very thing.
I'm sure there is. I feel like that would actually improve like what we do.
It
like if I studied
why there are things that happen in their day that aren't beloved until 200 years after its creator has left, and vice versa. Why that always happens. There's different reasons. There's no rule or law, right? It's all theory. It's all theoretical.
Right. Sure.
But the theories are, like, you can go down that kind of philosophy and human psychology and kind of mix and match if you want to try and figure it out and have an explanation for everything. But at the end of the day, you can't appreciate something without taking that sort of stuff into account. Like, you can't appreciate, a person's review for something like a game. Let's just use a video game.
Yeah.
It is so much how they're feeling at the time. Were they particularly happy in their life? Were they down in their life? Were there external factors?
Yeah.
Do they have some inherent bias? All of that goes into the review. But the problem is you don't know any of that as the reader.
It's almost like you need like a preamble.
All of that is hidden away from you. That's why the review scores are silly, because you don't get any of that unless you listen to the person tell you about their experience.
Sure. Yeah.
That can't be summed up in a tweet or a graphic.
Yeah. So then it's interesting to me then that like there still tends to be, when you look at a bunch of reviews, there still tends to be like this common ground. Generally speaking, there might be a couple outliers of like, this guy thought it was a 10 out of 10. This guy thought it was a 2. But like somewhere like the
most
the
every
majority
game is a 7 or 8.
Yeah, I think
It's like 85% of every video game review like ranges between 74 and 89.
I mean, that whole thing, that could be like a conversation in and of itself, in that are people reviewing in a way that they're aware that they're going to be put up next to somebody else?
No, it's monkey see, monkey do. They get
well, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, they get the impression that there's a game, let's say like 5 years ago, there was a game that you really liked that influenced you, and that game was like widely adopted as a 10. Well, then going forward, forever, you will always hold your 10 based on that 10, right? Sure. And it works the same way all the way down. And a game has to like do something different or jolt you in a different way, to make you basically color like outside the lines, to think outside the box. Otherwise, you kind of always have like these rubrics as to what and it's individual. It's not like widely adopted. Yeah. But I think most people understand what I'm saying. Like, there are certain people that kind of, they grab a few things and like, this is what an 8.5 looks like. Yeah. Like this is an 8.5. Like just in theory, here's what an 8.5 is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? And I'm sure you guys will talk about on each of our individual Xbox games and whatnot. We'll be talking about Mass Effect. I don't think you personally will be talking about it.
Not at all.
But I want to take it up a level. Like, we're not going to talk about the specific game, but like review scores for a remaster like that, kind of to your point before about like the psychology of it and like reviewing something, but trying to put yourself in the time that it was released and all that kind of comes into play with something like Mass Effect's Legendary Edition. And it's like, I don't know if that Metacritic is somewhere around like high 8s, low 9s type of deal. And you go, what are they being reviewed on? What should they be reviewed on? Is it the game itself? Is it the quality of the remaster? Like, where do you come in on that with a collection like that, even though you haven't necessarily played the Mass Effect collection?
I love remasters, and I think a big reason why I always say that is I like the remaster because it's like a director's cut. Like, you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting. So when it comes to me, like when I want to hear what somebody else thinks about a remaster, I specifically want to know what's different about it. Like, what are the differences between the experience? And I really want to hear what was your experience with it the first time, and how has it differed with this new iteration.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
That's basically, that's just me personally.
No, but I like that.
That's all I care about.
Yeah.
Everything else is stuff that I'm kind of waiting. I'm scrubbing through the review. I'm like, okay, I don't care, character, because it's been done before. Yeah. I want to know, what was your first experience like? What did you think about it? How does this change? Does it make it better? Does it make it worse? And particularly, what's different about it? Like, does it look better? Does it play better? Have they changed the story? Have they changed the characters? Like, have they made it more convenient to play? I want to know about the differences. But when it comes to remasters, one of the things that I love about remasters is that you know what you're getting into, even if you haven't played it before. It's like almost there's a history there that you can go check. Yeah, it's completely different than it's like a brand new game, because you still don't know when you go to buy a brand new game if you'll even agree
what even
with
the game
what
is.
The reviewers are thinking. Yeah, like you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this or not. And even if it is 10 out of 10 and widely beloved, like you still don't know that you're gonna love it too. But with a remaster, like you can see people play it. There's, you've got history. There's some time apart from it. Yeah. Also, the other thing that I think I don't like about reviews is that you have to have a final opinion on day one.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
That's not how this works. Games change over the time, even if they remain unchanged. I'm not even talking about games that get updates and stuff. Just perception, right? The commentary. You learn new things about a game. Maybe you were just wrong. Like maybe you played something, you thought it was this, maybe it was that. That happens.
Imagine if that openness permeated through the
or
space.
there's something.
I was wrong.
There's something else that, let's say there's a different game that comes out that makes you appreciate the game that you played before more than you did at the time. Yeah. Like the idea that they're locked in stone, like that's it, file it away, lock it in the vault. It's kind of stupid. It's kind of
it's actually kind of how I feel with the Mass Effect one. Could you
imagine if we appreciated art on a review scale? Like if you walked into a museum and you're like, Mona Lisa, 9.3.
9.3, exactly.
So dumb. It's so dumb. Or if you read a review for a new album. Yeah. Like who's the new hot art? Like Taylor Swift's new album.
That is interesting.
It's a 7.5. The hell?
That's not even a hypothetical. Like, because I'm sure that I've read reviews for albums. Like sometimes when I'm really excited about, this hasn't happened in years, but like I would read a review on some album and go like, why did they put a number on this? And that was weird to me, right? That I thought that very clearly and certainly, but we do it all the time in video games and probably movies too. Like, I don't know, like music felt weird, but movies and
Rebecca says they do review music albums. Apparently, there is 6.5
they do.
albums.
That's what I'm telling you.
On
like
a rating, on a review scale.
Yes, and like on a number or stars, like 4 to 5 stars.
Stars, I kind of get, because stars is more like you're not really reviewing it based on a number. Stars are basically kind of giving you like a.
It's because it's kind of the same thing.
It's an expectation of quality. I don't think it is. I disagree with you. I think the reason that people will say it's the same thing is I think stars, right? There's so many because of Metacritic. We've converted stars to numbers, but stars are really just kind of conveying quality. It's like 5-star review is excellent.
Sure.
4-star review is good.
That's interesting.
Like, it's not a number.
It's an interesting interpretation.
It's literally just kind of like a, you're basically just like almost giving it like a class or a level.
How bright is it?
Yeah, it's a broad stroke. A star review is a broad stroke.
Yeah. Yeah, Jason's on my side, I think, on this in the chat. Says it's the same thing. I agree. Like four stars is 85. I don't think that's right math.
I don't think it's the same thing.
4 stars out of 5 is 80.
I think because of the numbers, I think we've made it the same thing. I don't think it's the same thing. I don't think that was the intended use.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's interesting.
I don't think Roger Ebert, when he was given movies 5-star reviews in the 80s, was like, it's a 90. Like,
well, that's the thing. Like the 2 thumbs up thing was like, we both like it. I actually, if anything, like that was better.
Exactly.
Just like both these guys think it's good.
Yeah.
That you should watch it.
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, do you remember, like, I don't know if you're a little younger than me, but do you remember seeing like movies like 2 thumbs up where like a movie, a movie poster would say 2 thumbs up? That was the biggest deal.
I have a guilty passion. I love watching old Roger Ebert reviews of horror movies.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure.
They're the worst. They are the worst critics for horror movies that have ever existed. And they hate so many of my most beloved franchises, and like watching them and the things they say in their opinions, they're almost like comically bad, like SNL bad. Yeah. So it's high entertainment. Like go watch them review, Child's Play from like 1987. I
should actually.
Like, what the hell are they talking about?
I really should. And it's funny to like, I need to watch them in a way like that to see how bad and hilarious it is. But I kind of want to see like, I don't know if anybody has like a recommendation on some of the better reviews that made them so they themselves were critically acclaimed. Like that they were the critics that people really cared about.
They were the critics.
What made them that way?
That's the thing I tell my wife. We'll watch like documentaries and stuff, and they always bring up like these clips of what Roger and Ebert thought, and she's always like, "Why did they bring them up?" And I'm like, "Oh, you don't understand. For 30 years, they were the leading authority on all things movies. Like, could you imagine that today? Like, that's so dumb. Like, just this one outlet. These 2 dudes. These 2 people. They think for everybody. Like, what they say goes. Yeah. But yeah, for 30 years, that was the way. Like they did. Yeah. So it's
you look them up in the paper. Man, we're old, dude. If we can remember that kind of stuff. That is before dial-up.
I think they hated Halloween. If I could give one, I think that's one. One of like the really, really great horror movies. They just butchered. They just destroyed it. They're like this high piece of trash, and it's just real funny to watch.
Oh, and they just go on too.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it wasn't necessarily that they were critically acclaimed, they themselves that were really good at their, but like they had a dynamic going back and forth. You kind of waited for like them to go at each other a little bit. Like when one of them liked the movie, the other didn't. It became less about the movie and more about the attacking on the other person.
Dudes to give an opinion on something that I couldn't identify or share something less with. Like when I watch these 2, I'm like, I don't think any of these 2 guys would ever appreciate anything I have to say.
Well, of course. How can 2 people be representative of every opinion out there? Like,
especially
there's probably more people like you than not, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially those 2 people. Yeah. Jason in the chat says scores are only dumb if you take the score as the end all be all judgment. Its purpose is a snapshot of quality. It serves as a marketing purpose. I think that's true. I was just listening to a podcast talk about how it's sort of only lingering as an importance to giant games. Like the free-to-play games doesn't really matter. Indie games doesn't really matter. Now there's Game Pass, doesn't really matter. Like people kind of play them on their own. Game Pass this is something I've been reflecting on, having access to review copy games.
It definitely,
and just getting day and date on Game Pass. Like it feels like you should feel like somebody in the press, because you're getting that brand new game day and date like everybody else, like somebody in the press might.
It definitely feels like it serves a marketing purpose. I just don't think that marketing purpose in today's time is all that valuable. I think it used to be valuable in 2010. I don't think it's all that valuable in today's time. I feel like that's a little archaic and outdated. And I think the people that push that narrative, like, oh, we need it in things, you know why? Because their existence is tied to that narrative.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then what does that say for us, though? Like, I guess we're not putting a review score.
I don't do it. Yeah, like it doesn't say anything for me. I don't do it. But the people that I have heard go on record and try to explain why this has to be this way, their existence is directly tied to it staying that way. That's how they make their money. So it's like, I don't want to really listen to your opinion, because kind of sometimes, like your reviews, I don't think you're really giving me the, like the brass tacks about your actual opinion. So sometimes, I don't know. Look, Jace, you're not going to find any fan here. So if you want to do the podcast with Sean about how review scores are important, that can be a different show. But I'm team dev here. I hate scores. I used to be the same way. I used to love them. I used to value them. And the years of PSVG has almost made me loathe them. So
see, I'm not quite that far. I think I like that they kind of color the conversation.
I hate that every time a marquee release comes out, what do we get? We get the tweet of here's what the top 10 sites had to say, and it has nothing. There's no context. It's literally just a stream of numbers, and there are people. That tweet gets retweeted, and I retweet it because I'm sharing it for our Discord and our site. That's what people want. But then that tweet gets 2 million impressions, and everybody's like, it's a 9. Like, you haven't played it, you haven't read anything, you haven't learned it. So like, is it good? I don't think that's a good way to go. I don't think that's a good idea.
Well, and speaking of like tied to like if your existence is tied to, like, we do more commentary on it. Like even on the Xbox, like we do reviews, but we don't put a score on it, right? Like we'll have a review conversation about it.
Yes.
And we may make a recommendation. Like, is that kind of where we land on like, that's where we should be
that's where I like to be. And that's the content that I seek. Yeah. I don't want to, when games come out that I really, really like, I avoid reviews. But when I want to hear what people think about it, I want a podcast. I want a discussion. I want, a YouTube conversation. I want you to tell me, not just because the thing. Oh God, I didn't want to do this today, Sean. God, every review, right? There's almost like a rubric for reviews. It's like, here's what the game is. Here's the premise. Here's the character. Here's the setting. Here's the plot. Here's how the game is played. Here's the controls. Here's how they feel, and here's how they compare to other games that control this way. Yeah. Right. And then halfway into the review, you're like, here's an actual thing that I liked about it. Here's something I didn't like about it. Here's my wrap-up thoughts. Here's a review score. Yeah. That is more or less, I know I'm painting with a broad brush.
No, I think you're right.
That's more or less what, like 90% of reviews, like that's a lot of reviews is like basically that. I want to hear you tell me, like, I want to hear that I want to hear that in your voice, that inflection, that body language. What did you like about the character? What did you like about the story? What did you dislike about the character? And just because you didn't like it doesn't mean you don't like the overall thing. Like,
and by the time you get around to that, you've already used up 1,500 words to get to that point.
I want the details. That's what I want. I want the details. I feel like that's missing from the standard review score.
It's interesting because I've gone from writing, like I wrote reviews for We the Nerdy and quickly fell into that. You write, like, it doesn't take long for you to go, is there a formula to this? Like, even if you didn't know it was, like, you kind of develop your own approach to it, and you can either fall into that trap, which I think a lot of people do, or you can maybe try to explore that a little differently. And I just, not that I'm like the most talented writer ever, but I wanted to jump towards like the first paragraph not being about like, this is an action RPG from developer blah 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 from the last thing that they did was this, and I'm like, who cares? Like, this has nothing to do with, like, it was so standard. And as I was exploring that space in my writing, I kept reading other reviews after mine would publish. I'd go read what other people would have to say, and I'm go, they keep talking about the genre of this game or the developer of this game. Like, am I doing it wrong? Yeah. And that's kind of what I would love to have this conversation even with more reviewers on the scene of like, how does it impact you? Like, when you approach like another review and you read other people's reviews, like, how does that impact you? Are we all trying to stay in a familiar space for the reader's sake, or is there a defense mechanism that's kind of captured here? Like, why do all reviews sound the same? I have to imagine with the talent that's out there in the world and the wordsmiths that are out there, that there's another way to approach a review, that it's not launching on the July 7th. And it's, like that very Webster's dictionary defines this game as like, there's got to be a different way. But I don't know. I think a lot of people in the chat are mostly agreeing with us, but I think we're all in the same spot. Like we still,
even the folks that are disagreeing, I think are bringing up really good points. I mean, this is, and to Jace's point, this is the reason why they exist. Yeah. It does get people talking. It definitely serves as a marketing. Sure. I don't know if I think it's because oftentimes it doesn't get people talking, it gets people arguing.
Yes.
And that's the downside. It's like, I don't think it's I think it's a negative net.
Yeah.
Like it's not a positive net for this. It's a negative net. I'd rather do away with it and then let something else naturally take its place.
Something else. It's funny because like one of the things, and we can move on after this. One of the things I missed from
personal problem though.
Yeah. One of the things I missed from the IGN reviews is they used to break it down, and I think
I can only bring my personal opinion to it.
What else? What else can you do?
It's not even that I'm engaging in the arguments. It's that the arguments become the news. That's the marketing purpose. Yeah. I don't engage in the arguments, but the arguments become the news.
Yeah.
Right. The news of Returnal was, should it have a save button or not? Like it becomes the news. The arguments become the news. And I think that highlights folks that give hot takes or the negatives. That becomes more, that gets more attention in that model. You're highlighting that dissension, and everybody argues over the dissension instead of celebrating like the benefit.
Dude, that was happening with Returnal before the game even came out.
I know.
Like you knew what the conversation after the release was going to be before the game even came out, because
generally, as he says again, generally, I do think that model lends to those that have the hot takes, that have the clickbait headlines that go out on that limb. That model lends itself to that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a negative.
So there's no hope.
I think that's a negative net. I mean, there is. You can curate your experience like I did. I turned it off. I don't participate.
Yeah.
So
it's an evolved state, man. It's an evolved state.
I share, and then I play the games, and then I talk about them.
We sit to be marketed to, Donnie. We sit down, we sit, and we go, tell us.
Good segue.
Tell us all the things that we should be buying, and we will eat all of the hype
stuff. Way too long. I hope people make it to this part of the show.
No, we're usually talking about God knows what for the first half an hour.
That's true.
I don't know. My old back or God knows what. I wanted to listen to last week's episode too, because as soon as, of course, the podcaster syndrome is as soon as you hit stop, your memory is wiped clean of what you actually talked about. You don't remember.
Shout out to producer Ryan.
Yeah.
Because I don't edit and I don't do the show notes. This is the first show that I feel that way on. You asked me what I did in Shaq 3 weeks ago, and I totally know. I remember. This show, I had somebody comment on the Discord in the Sweet Hanks channel. They're like, Donnie, I agree with you on such and such. And I was like, did I say that?
Yeah, dude.
I did remind myself. I was like, I don't even remember what we did on Sweet Hanks.
Yeah, what was the show about?
Yeah, but that is just completely the fact that I'm not doing show notes. I'm not editing. I don't listen to it twice. I don't listen to it on my own. Like, this show wouldn't be possible without producer Ryan.
There is no doubt.
Doing the lift. So all claps and hat tip to producer Ryan. Thank you for everything you do.
Big time. Yeah, absolutely. So E3's coming up.
Yes.
I'm getting excited. I still don't really know what the schedule is.
Nope, nobody does. We don't know anything.
But it's like, I think Ubisoft may be the only ones that I think they got a Saturday.
Are they locked in?
I don't even know. I might be talking out of my
No, I think you're right. They did announce the Ubisoft Forward or whatever.
For Ubi Forward, yeah.
Yeah, but we still don't have that tweet with the schedule, so it's not real yet.
There's a page I checked out on IGN. There's a page and it's all like TBD across the board. It's all TBD. So who the hell knows? But we are getting set. I just want to book a day off. Like I just want to, like, if I need a Monday or a Tuesday off, I
took Monday, Tuesday.
You're just done like that, like just kind of assuming like that. That's kind of what it'll be.
I expect Nintendo will be Tuesday at noon.
That's a good idea.
I think,
and even if you don't want to live stream it,
will be Saturday or Sunday.
It's all consuming, man.
Yeah.
Like whatever news happens, you're gonna be hooked to Twitter. There's no hope of getting any work done. Like I said, whether you're a content creator or not, you're gonna be scrolling through trying to find out what actually happened.
It's my favorite time of the year.
Everybody's here.
I've put off family reunions because they scheduled them during E3.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, sorry guys,
Family reunion.
you guys didn't ask me.
Yeah.
Because I would have told you 6 months ago that this was a no, but you didn't consult me, so I won't be there.
That's a really good way to put it. Somebody else deciding that the family reunion, that you're a part of the family.
That's a real story. That really happened 2
I
years
have
ago.
no doubt.
My father-in-law, he bought his retirement home. He brought his entire family from everywhere. They had this huge party. They had a band. They had a huge cookout and all this stuff, and I did not go. And my mother-in-law was crushed. She was like, "You're not going to go so you can watch video games on the internet?" And I was like, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. I value this way more.
Yeah. If you guys want to make that as big a deal, have at it. But this is kind of as big as it gets right here.
I told her, look, no offense, but, like, if you'd asked, I would have told you, like, this week is a no-go. So, like, my family, they now know. They're aware. Last year we did a family vacation. They were like, Donnie's out second week of June. And it got canceled. But they knew. Like, right? That's the point, is that they knew.
There's a benefit to you being very upfront and blunt with people. They know. Like, you just leave no room for interpretation.
Yeah.
That's just the way that it is.
Yep.
Can I ask, kind of high level, like, is there I don't even know what to call them anymore. Presentation? Is there a showcase that you're looking forward to the most?
This year?
Yeah.
Nintendo's.
Is it really? Oh,
yeah,
really?
It's gotta be Nintendo's. Yeah.
Oh, I really thought you were going to tell me Devolver, but...
Well, I always look forward to Devolver. It's one of my highlights and favorites, but for completely different reasons. For the traditional gaming reasons, Nintendo.
Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to the Nintendo show. I've been on the train for the last 2 years that I've been saying on the podcast that I felt like Nintendo has been in a reloading moment based off of their first couple years with Switch. Yeah. You could tell that everybody's kind of fired their ammo. Yeah. You added in COVID. It kind of delayed those things. So we've been a little short on software, a lot of ports, a lot of space in between releases, and I think it's time for Nintendo to reload and kind of ready up their next wave. And that's very exciting, because when they get into those, because with Nintendo, they're very cyclical. Yeah. They go down period for 2 or 3 years, and then they come out swinging for 2 or 3 years. And we're about to come out of one. And like, this is the exciting part. Like, right when you get into this wave, because they're not just going to show you what's coming out in the next 6 months or so. They'll probably show us a game that we don't know about that's next year, maybe further. There was always 1 or 2 in there. I know recently they've been very close, that we'll show you about a game and it's out in 6 months. But that's not always the case. There's always usually 1 or 2 things that are further off. They'll kind of show us a little bit of that roadmap. And that's the exciting part for me. I feel like over the last couple of years, they've definitely had a bit more of a format to their approach to E3, which is, to your point, like, here's our big game. I don't know if it was before Breath of the Wild, but certainly since then, it was like, this is the game that we want you to know about. It's coming out in the fall, and that's kind of the deal. I don't know. Was that always? I feel like you followed E3 like way before me. I was watching some old E3 videos. My first bullet point that I wrote down was I started watching E3 when, and to me it was in high school is when I started getting to E3. So we're talking, that's a while ago, 2002 to 2006 maybe. So basically when it started, like basically when it kind of came over from CES. Yeah. How did you was it from magazines and stuff that you were getting into it? So the early days, I really remember the fallout of E3. E3 would happen, and then Game Informer would have a centerfold about here's what happened at this year's E3. Right. Because it was pre-internet, pre-video internet, I guess is the better way of putting it. And then you started to get there were a few times the DVDs would show up in GameStop, or I remember I think the first E3 I ever saw in one of the gaming magazines that I got at the Kroger. I don't remember which one it was, but it had a card that you could fill out and mail in. Stop. And they would send you a copy of E3 on disc. No way. Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice now if it was all just brought together somewhere? Yeah. I mean, I guess you can kind of go to they don't even do playlists on anybody's YouTube pages. You do a playlist or something like that. It was E3 when E3 became more of a thing for me, but when I started looking forward, I think that's the change, right? When you're a gamer that just buys, whatever game comes out, you're very much in the present. It's when you become the gamer that starts planning ahead
Yep.
the E3's importance starts going through the roof because it's your
Interesting.
first look
Yep.
forward and not just right now.
Yeah. Which I love that you said that too, because there was a time where we were looking forward to I'll never forget watching the development of, this will mean nothing to you, but we were watching the development of StarCraft very, very closely. As big fans of Warcraft, we heard, and I still can't remember how like these rumors went around because there wasn't any internet. We didn't really have access to that sort of thing. I wasn't really active in a lot of chats or anything, but I'd heard about StarCraft. Maybe I was on IGN.com, and I watched it change from looking very much like a Warcraft game to like totally different. Like Blizzard did something very, very different. But so I've been looking forward for games for a very long time. I was looking forward to Unreal, like before that game came out on PC, but PC wasn't represented at E3 at all. So like I was in that space, but I wasn't a console gamer, which I think is really interesting. I think that's exactly why I wasn't into E3 so early, because I wasn't really a console gamer until like I got an Xbox in whatever year that was, 2000, 2001. I had a Dreamcast, but like I was like you said, like I was in the moment. I wasn't looking forward to it in the console.
You may know what's
That's
coming
a perfect definition.
this year. Like basically your knowledge forward was based on the pre-orders that were like at GameStop or EA Games or whatever. That's what you knew. It's like there was a transition at that time. And again, this is all subject before internet video, right? Because that changed everything. But at that time, there was a change, and I don't think it was very popular, but there were groups. I had a group of friends at high school, like we wanted to know, like that's when I started chasing down like mythical Suda 51 games that I heard were coming out in Japan. You know, I was like, there are more games in the world. Like there are these games that are being made on, there are announcements in Japan that are happening that we're just unaware of.
Sure.
And you start like, cyber sleuthing that stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what kind of got me going on E3. So like late E3, like late high school, like 2005, 2006, like that's when I was
like
all
ever
on E3.
since the whole time.
Yeah,
that's awesome. See, like for me,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, for me, it was tied to podcasts. Once I started listening to video game podcasts who talked about E3 and like the predictions and all that kind of stuff. So I'm much more recent.
I think
so like 2014.
I think my E3 stuff led me to finding podcasts, because I wanted more.
That's
I actually think that's what kind of got me into it. Is I was on these forums, writing all these forums and threads and going to these different venues. I used to have a menu on my computer browser that had all of my forums, had all these credentials.
Yeah.
And I've always been a little weird like this. I used to do the same thing for like the NBA. I used to like sleuth out like trade rumors and stuff like that. So it's very much kind of like just a part of my personality. I like trying to find and have information like that. So I think that led me to podcasts. It led me to finding people, because I would be on the forum and they'd be like, so-and-so in their podcast said X, Y, and Z. I'm like, oh my God, I need this information. I want to hear this information. Yeah. And I think that's actually what got me listening and enjoying podcasts to begin with, because I didn't listen to podcasts about like before video games. Like video games is a thing that brought me to podcasts to begin with.
Podcast, that's a whole other like origins of podcast listening. It was like as soon as it got split out from the music app on the iPhone, that's when it started for me, which I think is all kind of tied around this time. When they started doing the whole PlayStation 4 reveal, like they had their own event, and Xbox One had its own event, and like all the conversation that kind of came around that, it's all tied to like my time with We the Nerdy. 2012, 2013.
I was way earlier than that. I was gonna say like the PlayStation 4 reveal, that's so much later in my opinion.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Because I was gonna say I wrote down a few things. I wrote down
like I missed a lot. Like I have to go back and look at the $2.99 moment that Sony did.
With the Saturn?
No, it was against the Saturn. They came up and said like
and that was before me. That was in the 90s, but
yeah.
I mean that's iconic, right? People just $2.99. That's really, I would love for them to lean into that more.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
They should release a game that only costs $2.99 just so they can make that money. Just make that commercial and be like $2.99. Yeah. That'd be really great. But I would say some of my earlier memories, for whatever reason, the Twilight Princess reveal is a big one.
Oh yeah,
huge.
See, now I've watched back. I obviously wasn't there live watching it, but
and then I have this. This is the crazy one though. This is the one I always think of this for whatever reason. I think it's because I do want to talk about it. All right, hang on. Let me set this up a bit. I wrote down some notes. I've got like kind of my beginnings. I've got my favorite E3 moments. I've got like my worst E3 moments.
Okay.
One of the trends that I think, one of the themes that kind of I always resonate with E3 is a lot of times I feel hoodwinked at E3. Like a lot of times I feel like a bait and switch or like kind of screwed over.
Yeah.
And I always remember like getting excited about something that's like that basically was nothing or sucked. And one of the earliest memories of one of those is Spore.
Oh God, yeah.
It's like
hoodwinked is exactly the word.
Peter Moore talk about Spore and like
Peter Moore
talk about
just get him off
Spore
the
back in the
stage.
day. I was like, Spore is gonna be like the biggest game of all time.
I bought into that big time.
And it's so funny, Sean, because you fast forward like, I don't know, like 10 years maybe. So like what you were talking about, the era, I kind of felt the same way when No Man's Sky got shown. They started talking about it. I was like, that's Spore. I'm not going to touch that.
Interesting. I've been here.
I was like, I've seen this before. You're not going to get me twice, guys.
That's really funny. Yeah. Well, and even the notion of like procedurally generated was still kind of new, but
it was
like
groundbreaking
infinite
at the time. Infinite
possibilities.
Worlds, the biggest game the world has ever seen, right? Like, that was on the cusp of that stuff. And, you know, games like No Man's Sky are like the perfection of that idea.
Yeah.
But back in the day, like these tech advances that we get early sights on, they're so easy to fall into because they are impressive at first sight because you've never seen anything like it before.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the cool things about E3.
Well, one of the things that kind of comes to mind for me when you talk about that, but it was done very safely in that like somehow people didn't think, well, this is coming to Xbox, but the HoloLens with the Minecraft demo was very cool, like really very cool. Like advanced tech, but nobody went like, okay, obviously I want that in my home.
But that's one of those things that you look back on and you're like, why the hell was that even there?
Exactly.
But here's the beauty, like it's a guilty pleasure. Yeah. Because you realize that it's stupid. You're like, why is any of this there? And I think there are those people that's like, cut all this crap out, get all of it. Just give me the trailers, right?
Yeah.
But there's also the people that love video gaming that are like, do you remember how that terrible thing that was in E3 6 years ago? Like, as you get away from it, there's almost like a fondness for just being included or seeing some of that type of stuff that I really enjoy about E3 sometimes.
Yeah, I remember the first time that I live tweeted an E3. You know, like doing that and just like don't even care. And now we stream it, so we can kind of do basically what we would live tweet. But now we just yell it out and stuff. Yeah. But back then I wasn't like as entrenched in this world. I still had some like work people who were following me on Twitter because like we're kind of figuring what the hell Twitter even was back then. And so I had like this day to just like, and here's all my gaming. And some people are like, I'm just gonna back away from Sean's Twitter now. Because that's a little intense.
Your boss show up and you're like, I think you're supposed to be working. Like, what are you doing today?
Yeah, be very mindful. And that's that. You just got to book it off because you got to be mindful.
My boss knows about E3. That's the other beauty.
I love that.
For years, my boss is like, Donnie's out first week, second week of June, he's done.
Yeah. When I went, I had to like say, I'm not even going to be in the country.
Nice.
Like, and it was my first year with that job. I'd been with my previous job for 10 years. I'm like, nice to meet you. Yeah, in June, I need a week off because I'm going to LA. Yeah.
Go talk
what are you going to LA for?
Games.
That sounds great. I'm going to watch like video game presentations. Yeah. I'm leaving the country.
The first time I took off of work, like back in 2014, I think about it, my boss looked at me like I was a crazy person.
Absolutely.
Now he tells other people about it and then tells them to come watch me. He's like, oh, it's a big deal. He's got people, they watch him on YouTube. Like, you should check it out.
It's the time. It's the time. Absolutely. Yeah, Rebecca's in the chat says I can't because it's the last day of school, and Dev goes, make them watch E3 as part of the experience.
Yeah.
I love that.
Especially the last day of school, it'd be like the best teacher counselor ever. Like the kids would love that. Yeah, put it on do you have a media library or something? Put it on a big screen, like, you know, set up like Nintendo New York.
Yeah.
Record the kids
projection.
Popping.
Yeah. I like it. Well, you have notes. I could talk all day, but you have things.
I have bullet points.
Yeah, what else you got there?
The Twilight Princess one was big because I didn't see the Wind Waker reveal. I don't know how many people did. It was like Space World or whatever back before E3. But I remember the people talking about it, like in the video clips that we're making out, like on like G4 and stuff like that, or in news articles. There were a lot of people that threw a lot of shade at Wind Waker when it came out.
Oh, totally.
And Twilight Princess was basically an immediate reaction to the negative feedback that Wind Waker got.
Yeah,
it couldn't be like, it's basically the polar opposite to the Wind Waker. Like that's what that game is.
Realistic Link.
Yeah, and it was so excited. People were so like hyped for that. And then you fast forward to like, I think the E3 Twilight Princess the E3 Twilight Princess reveal that most people remember isn't its actual reveal. It's its Wii reveal, which is basically a re-reveal. Yeah. That's when Miyamoto comes out with the Wiimote and he's acting like he's fighting things and he's doing, and it's very charming.
Mm-hmm.
But that was announcing that Twilight Princess was coming to the Wii. That was like 3 or 4 years after it was announced. Like it was announced, I think it was announced like the year after Wind Waker came out. It was announced early.
Yeah,
it was like I remember Reggie Fils-Aimé. I think it was one of his first like E3s, I think, and he was like, this is the best Zelda game we ever made. It's the most beautiful Zelda game we've ever made. So I feel like that's almost like my origin point, only because I was such a Nintendo fan.
Sure.
Like, that's the one that I think of like most early. That's the one.
Dude, we
really
could have an
with.
hour and a half of just Reggie at E3.
Oh, yeah.
Reggie moments at E3. Like all of my body is ready. The Nintendo 63, Nintendo 64 push-ups. Like the Muppets or whatever is so
we're going to talk about the Muppets. The Muppets on the list. The other thing that comes up immediately to me when I think of E3 just overall is I think of code names, Sean.
Oh, yes.
Project Natal, Scarlet,
Natal, of course.
Scorpio, Cafe, The Revolution.
Cafe is a terrible project name. We could run down like some of the best and worst project names. I like the Xbox ones. Call me partial. And also I liked PlayStation for a while. They was doing it all Matrix and stuff.
Yeah.
They had Neo, they had Morpheus. Yeah.
I think the cool thing about E3 is it gives credibility and makes these things that previously only existed in like forums or on Twitter, basically like they exist but they're not real.
Right.
But E3 makes them real. Like when a company comes out and they're like, so we've seen that you guys have heard about Project Scorpio.
I love the little nods. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, let's show you what it is. And then it's like it becomes real, and it really ties. It's almost like an Easter egg for following like the news. Like if you're really connected to what's going on, you get a sense of gratification because you know what the hell they're talking about.
Well, even when Gabe Newell came out, I can't remember what year it was, but Gabe Newell came out on Sony stage to talk about Portal, and you had to like, if you're just going like, well, this is just a dude coming out to talk about Portal, but you have to know the things that he said about like games on console and developing for console and especially PlayStation. But the fact that he showed up, like if you're following all that stuff, you're like, oh my God, it's Gabe Newell on PlayStation stage.
I'm sorry, Sean. I just Dev over here throwing shade at Wind Waker. Just what the hell?
I don't know. I just want it to be inverted. I don't know why they don't have inverted controls on it.
Best Zelda game. So a lot of times, like when I think of E3 overall, that's those are generally like the themes I think about. I think about the games that never were or crashed and burned. I think of the awkward moments. I think of the really pop moments that I think were really fun, and then I think of like project names and hardware reveals and like where are these rumor origin points or not origin points, but the beginning of actually being able to see something.
Sure.
Because a lot of times we'll hear about, especially in hardware, we'll hear about hardware for years before it shows up, and it's almost like E3 makes it real and it makes it worth knowing about. So like when we're doing these and especially now, like kind of fast forwarding up to your generation, like in the teens, like when it's actually a big thing and it's being broadcast on YouTube and Twitch and, cable TV channels are picking it up and stuff like that, then really following the news and almost like gives more value to following it because you're inside, like you're insider. Like you know what's going on.
But you also create some expectations as well. Like you kind of know what does Nintendo tend to do with these sort of things? What does Ubisoft tend to do? What is Xbox? And with EA, like nobody cares about EA. Like that's the whole thing, but we still watch it go like, maybe this will be the year.
I care about EA. I like EA shows.
And I do too. I think the EA shows are terrible. Like I think the EA games
have been lately.
They
weren't
bad.
Always.
I mean, I need to be reminded specifically of the one that was like, yeah, that's the banger. But I don't know, man. There was a couple of years there too, like in this last generation, I think Ubisoft really hit a stride. And they maybe were a little long. I think there was 1 year, maybe 2 years ago, where it was like 2.5 hours long. Just
that's
insane.
The one. Yeah, we watched. I watched with Dev live. It was me, Dev, and Kyle, and I think it was like worst Ubisoft show I think I've ever seen.
Yeah,
that's the one they announced the TV show.
Yeah,
which I hated
a little much.
Not because they announced a TV show. I just thought it was really weird. It was a weird marketing deal because they announced a TV show that, if I remember correctly, I think it's Apple only.
Yeah.
Which has nothing to do with Ubisoft, and you can't watch it on any of your consoles. So I remember being just stunned. I was like, why is this here?
Yeah. I remember, and the thing that comes to mind for me when I think about E3 and moments, and you talked about Twilight Princess. For me, the Zelda moment was the snap. when Al Numa just went. He was sitting in front of like a white background, and he just snapped, which was very Switch, actually, before the Switch was even a thing. He snaps his fingers, and then, Link riding his horse right behind him shows up. And it was like, that was the first we saw Breath of the Wild. We didn't know it was called Breath of the Wild. It was still a Wii U game. We saw him and Miyamoto with a gamepad.
I thought that was at Game Awards.
I'm pretty sure
that
was at E3.
Okay.
Maybe I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure that was an E3 thing.
I remember the first couple. One of the funny things about Breath of the Wild.
No, it was after. No, you're right. There was a big talk about Breath of the Wild at the Game Awards later, but the original like reveal, that snap, was definitely an E3 thing.
Okay. The thing about Breath of the Wild that's interesting is that our very first looks at Breath of the Wild basically aren't the game. Like, they weren't there. Mm-hmm. It's one of those like things, and I think that there's an appreciation for seeing how a game changes as it makes its way to market. But there's also, I think there's a lot of people on the flip side of the coin that they often feel like they're being lied to, because there's a lot of examples of people showing you one thing at E3 that's in concept. Yeah, but never makes it to you actually, in reality. And Breath of the Wild is one of those. Yeah, there are those folks that Breath of the Wild, like those very first images, like the one, I think I'm thinking of the Game Awards when I think, as Rebecca does point out that you are correct, it was at E3. The one where he was being chased by the Guardian, like over the hillside and everything, like that's not there.
Yeah.
Like that's a concept of what happens, but that itself isn't there. The game doesn't look like that, it's just a thing. So
yeah, Deb brings up Watch Dogs. I don't know what year that was, but before the next generation of consoles.
That was the one before the next gen launched. Yeah, they were showing off of conceptually what next gen hardware would bring, and it didn't land with people. Yeah, it didn't show up, and it got a lot of negative feedback. And
there is a lot of good coverage on that,
all the time.
Well, and the thing is that few people talk about, because it lands on that game, right? And the way that Ubisoft presented that game, but they had to guess what the capabilities of the next generation of consoles was going to be, and like they do that the best that they can.
Yeah, of course.
With the information that they have. Yep. So there's a relationship thing there where maybe Xbox or PlayStation or both didn't really provide them with enough information for them to really determine what that next game was going to be. So
they're not
maybe
ready
they shouldn't have. Yeah, or maybe they shouldn't have shown you. If they really don't know, maybe they shouldn't show you.
Okay, so I'll bring up one of the things that I said. I've already brought it up before. One of the things that in hindsight, I like it, because it lets you see there are stories to be told. What happened to this game or that game?
Yeah.
It's like,
what happened to all those puddles, Donnie?
But in the moment, in reality, I hate it about E3 is that so often people are bringing you pitches of games. They're not actually games. Right. They don't exist yet. They're slices, which I never would have known without E3. E3 is the thing that brought me the game slice, the slice of a game. Like, it's this pitch, right? It's a sales pitch. But it doesn't exist. It's not a real thing.
Yeah.
E3s are full of those. Yeah. There's the road is littered with games that never made it. Yeah. The one that I always think of was when the Wii was announced. It was announced with like a hardcore game called Project Hammer. I'm not sure if people remember it, and I remember because it was one of the new games, right? They showed the Wii, they showed Twilight Princess, showed Mario, the stuff that you're supposed to remember. Project Hammer was different, and I think that's why I remember it. And it was like this beat 'em up game that had motion controls. It was actually, Sean, are you familiar with this game?
No, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Not in gameplay, but in concept, it's kind of Gears-like, actually.
Yeah.
There's these robots, they invade the planet, you've got to beat them all up and everything. And it just died. It just never showed up. And the 3DS, when it was announced, I encourage everybody to go back and watch the 3DS announcement E3. They have a slew of developers that promise support for it and talk about how powerful the hardware is, how it can do stuff with graphics that they could never do before. And it's in hindsight, we know that's completely marketing fluff. It's completely wrong. It's completely very ill-powered equipment.
Yeah.
But there's an Assassin's Creed game was announced for 3DS. It's in their announcement thing, half of those games never made it. Half. It's not just one. There's a bunch of games from developers that never made it over to 3DS that at its announcement were there. And it feels like every show every year has that game. There's always that game somewhere.
Definitely there is, and for Xbox, it became part of the narrative of like what is happening over at Xbox is a problem.
Good point.
With like Scalebound and things like that.
That's
and, that's the one. I felt like there was a collection of. I'm sure there was a couple others that kind of come to mind. They're like, oh, I can't believe
Phantom Dust.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. Well, and also Fable Legends, I think, was kind of in there as well. Like there was a couple in there that got.
And that one was real. There are people that played that game, right? But like Phantom Dust, that was a thing. They announced an all new Fable Dust. Phantom Dust never happened.
Yeah. I want to ask you about, because I know you have feelings towards at least a couple of the PlayStation E3s. I was looking some things up.
You want to do this where we lose listeners?
Well, and actually, so the one I was talking before, Jeff Grubb doing the whole like rewatch of old E3s. Like one of the video titles was the best PlayStation or the best E3 conference ever, and it was 2015.
Oh God.
Final Fantasy VII remake. Shenmue 3 and The Last Guardian. Yeah, Field of Dream. So there's that one. And then the other thing that I was reading as well is a lot of people consider 2016 actually to be the best. And I think that I would rather that become the narrative.
I consider the best E3 conference from Sony to actually be the best one ever, and it was when they launched the PS4. That's the best E3 conference ever, in my opinion. They crushed the competition that night, and there's no arguing. One way or the other, you can talk about.
Oh, just them talking about like,
that when they destroyed Xbox that night.
That was how you share games.
Profound way.
Yeah.
But let's talk about E3. The E3 of dreams, as Dev brings up. The E3 of dreams has a particular thorn in my side.
Sure.
Because that is the moment that I realized that I wasn't as into PlayStation as maybe I thought I was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was like, there was a little background, because I know there are a lot of folks that listen to this show that I don't think listen to me on my other show. So just a little quick background. Always a Nintendo gamer, became an Xbox gamer. When The Last of Us came out, got a PlayStation 3. And then the show that we were just talking about a moment ago, the launch of these two consoles happened. I flip. Yeah. I go PlayStation 4.
Same.
And the fact that both of you and I go same and agree, that shows how great that E3 was.
Yeah, I totally did.
We'll get to there. 2015's PlayStation show was the show where I realized, like, I don't get it. Like, I'm not into this. I'm not. It was like a disassociation, because I was all there. Last of Us Remastered, Uncharted Collection, Horizon Zero Dawn. I was like, let's do a PlayStation. What are you doing, Xbox? What is Recore? You guys suck. Like I was.
Recore?
I was
the greatest lineup in Xbox history. 2015.
I was in it, and then E3 2015 happens, and I don't think there was. That might have been the most tense that PSVG's Discord has ever been, because we have a very heavy, lean PlayStation community.
Yeah.
And I was letting them have it because, like, in the teens, we talk about this rise of video game commentary in this conversation. Obviously, you've got the Kind of Funny. Easy Allies goes on their own. Like, everybody has their own thing.
Yeah.
The global adoption of PlayStation's 2015 being the greatest E3 of all time really bothered me. Yeah. Because I thought it sucked. I was like, you guys have got to be kidding me. They announced a Kickstarter. What the hell's the matter with you? Like, if Nintendo pulled the same thing, if they remastered a beloved game from 30 years ago and announced a Kickstarter, people would have pitchforks. They'd be so damn mad. I thought it was the biggest shill Sony pony fan of a brand thing I'd ever seen.
But what if the Kickstarter was for Mother 3?
Yeah. Maybe people would be excited, I guess.
They probably would be, and they wouldn't care that it was.
And here's the thing. I'd feel the same way about that I felt about it in 2015.
I'm sure you
I'd
would.
Be that Nintendo fan being like, what the hell?
You'd keep, but to your point, like, what would fans in that ecosystem kind of think? Like, they would be thrilled. They would be absolutely thrilled.
I was like, okay, look, I get it. Final Fantasy VII, not my thing, but I get it. Big marquee game, everybody loves it. It's the GOAT, whatever you want to say about it. Like, I get it. But Shenmue
is a little weird.
The Last Guardian, which we had seen for like 12 years, and it's like people are like screaming at the stage.
Yeah.
I was like, guys, like compared to
It was a tantric moment. It was a selection of like tantric things that people were just like holding off. They're almost there. They're almost there for years.
they
And then
were
they got their
losing
little
their
climax.
minds,
Well, they got their
screaming like it was
climax
the
after 10
greatest
years.
thing ever. And I got to tell you, as I look at my best E3 moments, I have several that are here from PlayStation, several that I really, really enjoy. Like when I think of E3, PlayStation has such a great track record in history at E3 that I don't think Xbox has actually.
Yeah.
And this isn't one of those for me.
Yeah.
And I will always bring it up and I will always fight it because I hate that I feel this is one of those moments where I feel very detached from like the popular opinion, right? Like, and you never like being that way. It's not a hot take. I'm not doing it to be different. Okay, so I wish I agreed with everybody else. I hate that everybody loves this moment. And I get it.
Let me hone in on Final Fantasy because I think you and I can maybe agree on the like Shenmue is like, and maybe some people can walk that back. Like Shenmue, like really, and Last Guardian, it came out and everybody.
I'll never forget Gabe Patillo going absolutely bonkers about Shenmue.
Oh, of course.
Like,
I mean,
come on.
But he was a genuine.
I know.
You knew that he was playing those. But a Final Fantasy 7, like you gotta know Final Fantasy 7 remake. Like that's a big deal. Right? It's not like you have like no idea why people are going crazy. Oh no!
Like I said, I give that one. Like that one, I understand. But it's also a Square Enix game.
Yeah. I mean, but so my big thing about that one was not even just like whether or not I was excited about the games or not. It was I was noticing this trend in PlayStation E3s, which was here's some games that are coming out in the 2000s sometime. Like they're coming out in the next 15 years at some point. And it's like that was selling hardware, which I found to be really, really interesting. I've gotten less like upset about it. I think back in those days, I was trying to like maybe persuade people the other way. It's like there's no persuading people's opinions when they've made up their mind. It's like you guys can just have it. But I thought that was very, very strange that people would buy. Like my brother was a good example. He's like, I just heard about the Final Fantasy 7 remake. I'm buying a PlayStation 4 now. What?
Yeah.
Like that game is so far away. The guy who's making it doesn't even know he's making it yet. Like all of those stories kind of came out. It didn't matter.
I've heard it for years. Oh, this is just marketing. It doesn't matter, but it does. It has E3 has extreme real weight to the industry. People make decisions on E3.
A lot of people do, and that's why I never wanted it to go away. And we've been slamming maybe PlayStation a little bit here. 2016, if we skip over a year, was the year that we saw Spider-Man. And I gotta say, like the Spider-Man reveal was one of the best. And anytime they showed Spider-Man, it was one of the best looking reveals. That was like holy, like it didn't feel fair. If you were playing on a console somewhere else, you're like, I feel like I should have this. I feel like I should. It was so perfect. I felt, anyways, the first time that they showed, and they didn't even have like the actual name for it. It was just like Spider-Man. Sure, it was like a working title.
No, I definitely remember how great that game looked, and I remember being very excited about it. But I mean, it's not one of my favorite moments. Not with PlayStation.
Like outside of Nintendo. Yeah. Well,
my favorite PlayStation moment comes to the very first Last of Us reveal.
Oh, snap. Yes.
And that was I want to say that was a terrible E3, but if it hadn't been for that reveal, it was. I don't remember exactly what they announced at E3, but that E3, I think it was like a lot of Vita stuff and a couple other like minor games, maybe PlayStation Move stuff or whatever. And then they showed The Last of Us. And I remember how this is, I think if I want to shout it out, I didn't watch it today. I think it was Pittsburgh. It was a game slice of the game in Pittsburgh. Yeah. And what we see Ellie and Joel do the little raft thing across the river, and then they enter the hotel. And then the hotel, Joel gets into a fight, and you hear Ellie, and she's in danger, and Joel fights the guy, and he like bashes his head and everything. And then after you do that, the camera like immediately flips to the right as he looks to the right, and another dude comes through the doorway, and he fights and he shoots him. And then as he shoots him, the guy is like, "Please don't!"
No!
And then Last of Us.
Yeah,
that's it. And I was like, that was a moment for me where gaming, and you know what I said earlier about reviews, like you have this idea in your head like what a great thing is until something comes along and like sets a new bar. That reveal set a new bar for me. Like I was like, holy shit. I have never ever seen a video game go that hard, look that brutal, look that visceral, look that real. Not real like in terms of textures, but like real as in like weight. Yeah. Have that sort of weight to it. And they just hit you with this, and it looked great and it felt great. And for me personally, loving horror stuff, post-apocalyptic stuff, like it hit everything that I wanted. That was the moment where I was like, I have to have a PlayStation. For that moment, for me, I was like, I cannot not play this game. I have to have one. And from that point forward, I went seeking a PlayStation 3 because I knew The Last of Us was coming and I had to play it.
Man, and yeah, we could go on, I think, about some of these moments too, because like I remember, like, this is why I want the live crowds back, because I feel like that swell of excitement that happens, or that reaction, I think is really important. I feel part of it. PlayStation did the whole you could go watch it at a theater, which I never got to experience. I really wanted
folks that always did that.
I think Kyle from the trophy room has done that in the past as well. I would love to be able to do that. Maybe for one that I'm not necessarily streaming, but yeah, like they have these moments, right, where you're watching something, like, I don't know what this is. Is that Kratos? Is this God of War? Like those are big deal moments, you know. And I love the theater, the theatrics of it all.
Pageantry.
Yeah, and even, you know, the little that we got for The Last of Us 2 when that was revealed, it's like, is Joel dead? Like, is he a ghost? Is she remembering him? Like all the stuff that kind of comes out of that. Sony has done, you know, I just didn't like where they ended up with. The last time we saw Sony at E3, I just don't like where they were going.
I wrote it down. I think I wrote it down. That was the one where they changed venues.
Yeah, that was terrible.
That was awful.
Well, and that's where they were dancing. That's Ellie and Dina dancing.
And they
together.
kept doing like all right. So they had like the show in the theater, and they had like a musical thing. Yeah. And then they went outside to like a table.
Yep.
Where we listened to Sid Schumann talk for like 10, 15 minutes, and then they fast and like all in between you're just seeing people walk outside like across to another theater. And I remember I watched that one live.
Shark, really.
I watched that one live with Kyle and Kevin, and I liked what we were seeing in content. Yeah. But just perplexed and puzzled by what was happening. I was like,
it was so close. They could have pulled it off.
Why are they doing all of this?
But they really could have pulled that off. Just maybe a couple more years. Maybe they do it again. Like, I'm hard on it because that viewing experience, I think, was brutal, right? But
had it been pre-staged, we have seen shows where they jump from location to location. Yeah. Had it been in completely two different places and they kind of made it more seamless, I agree with you. There is an alternate reality where that's pulled off and we all love it. But that just a little bit of like, was super odd.
Sony was getting a little up its ass. You know, I think it was 2016 where they had the symphony, and it's like, oh, look at this, oh la di da.
Hang on a second. There's one of my hot takes that I wrote down here. Best E3 moments, and I wrote down, I really, really like E3 musical performances, and I feel like that is a hot take. I feel like for a decade,
like nobody else does.
I've heard every podcast be like, who doesn't care to play the music? Show us the game. And I hate that. Because I hate that music is such a big part of games.
Of course.
And every time they have it, I feel like I always hear the same show. You're talking about watching people watch old E3s. When I've seen people do that, I think I always hear the same opinion. They go, look at the people in the crowd. They don't even care. And it's like, yeah, let me show you a symphony and look at the people in the crowd. They also look like they don't care. Like, that's a part of being
in a good point.
Look, that's a part of being in a theater. What do you expect? You're going to look out there and see them jumping around and jumping off the damn balcony? Like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But the musical performances that we do get at E3, like when we have Gustavo do his little banjo thing, play as a thing. We had the Pied Piper that one year. We got Grant Kirkhope doing the Ubi show with the Mario music, right, for like Mario Rabbids. Yeah, like when I think of the Zelda orchestra when Skyward Sword came through,
all these performances, and you're not bringing up Andrew WK for Rage 2.
Oh, Rage 2, yeah. Look, I know people. I feel like it's pretty common that people don't like that. I do. I think it's really cool. I think it makes E3 feel different. I think it gives some credence to why you're having it in a theater to begin with. It's not just a marketing video. It's not just a thing you throw on a screen. Yeah. It is a theater experience that you're seeing, and there's a part of the reason why you're witnessing it. God of War Orchestra.
I think there's a maturity that you're bringing to it that maybe just we had to come around to that as just gamers. Maybe there's an immaturity just inherently, and maybe people will hate me for saying this, but maybe there's a childish immaturity that we bring to commentary about games that, like, because you're saying all these things, and I'm like, I agree, I'm nodding along, but I also launched into this going like, that was kind of pompous of PlayStation to bring in a symphony. Like, who the hell do you guys think you are? It wasn't
the symphony part, but like the whole dancers in the ceiling and the changing the venues.
Yeah, I was a little bit more
that I get.
but I tend to like give me that like symphony experience of like all the games I love, because it's such a powerful.
That's one of the things I love about the Game Awards.
Yeah. Yes, me too.
Yep. I like it. I always want it. I want everybody to do it. I want to do more of it. Because I think it does make it feel like it's one of the things that I hate is when people write it off and they go, it's just game trailers, just marketing. You don't even need it. It's not. It's a presentation to show. It's no different. It's like a celebration. It's no different than like any other hardcore community that has an event where you go and partake and you enjoy those things that make those things great.
Yeah.
And, like we don't have
now I kind of want it.
concerts or festivals or anything like that. That is one of the things that I think makes E3 being in a physical location, happening in real time. The music performances are one of the things that make that worth doing. Otherwise, just do a direct and throw it up on YouTube. But it's not as special. It doesn't feel as good.
The thing that is jarring, maybe I'll capture it in this way, is that so much of E3 is like it doesn't linger on too much, right? And when it does, people kind of go, whether it's music or not. Like I'm kind of talking about like when a demo goes on too long or something like that. Like people kind of get a little restless, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to do music without it lingering. Like you're going to play a 3.5, maybe 4.5 minute song, and you're just going to kind of sit there and watch or listen to it. Exactly. So maybe that's the balance that can be struck, which is maybe if they can just be a little quicker with the musical interludes. Like
how about people be a little more patient?
Well, there's that. I mean,
it's coming. Here's another.
This is me walking away from trying to, like I said it before, I'm just trying to walk away from trying to change people's minds. And
here's another thing. Back in like the early aughts, 2008, 2009, 2010, go watch those E3s. Yeah. Talk about now, you're like, oh, it needs to be faster, less of this.
I know.
Back then, they used to spend 25 minutes talking about how you can rent movies from the PSN store, or PlayStation Home. They're like, there's so much and I'm going to say crap, and I realize for these companies it wasn't. But dude, in the early days of E3, they would spend so much time talking about crap that we really didn't care about. There was like PlayStation Music Unlimited and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You remember they brought like Groove music to Xbox? They're like, now you can subscribe and you can play, and let's show you how you play the music while you're playing Forza. It's like, get off the stage.
We've been saying that for so many years, like get on with it. And this is like, there's a point, I don't know what year it was. I think there was a PlayStation one, maybe 2017, where it was a lot of like, let's just let the games do the talking. I think Sean Layden said something like, let's just see the games. And then they just like rolled tape for 20 minutes. And I remember thinking in that moment, like, ooh, I don't want this. And everybody else was like, yes, just roll the trailers for us. And it's like, I don't feel like I'm the smartest person in the world, but you can see where this is going, right? Like you can see that like as soon as you go give us that, then that is all you're going to get. You're not going to get any of the other stuff.
Like, why do we even need to be here?
That's exactly what has happened. Like that's
exactly what's happened.
That's the eventuality.
And I've never been against Nintendo for doing the Direct because I think it fits their style, and I think that's what they're doing. But here's the thing that I also bring about when Nintendo doing the Direct, because I always bring up the same time because I feel like you have to say it.
Well, they're the best at it.
Just because Nintendo went virtual with their presentation doesn't mean they didn't have an E3 experience. Most of the time, their E3 experience was one of the best experiences there. Yeah. Like so many people value the experience just on the press show. It's like, have you seen what Nintendo has done to their booth at E3?
Yeah, enormous.
It's freaking amazing. It looks like a theme park. Everybody wants to go there. Like they still have an experience. Reggie still used to do a keynote before they opened the booth outside of the presentation. It just wasn't broadcast. He still used to get up there and talk for 10, 15 minutes about how excited he was everybody came to see Nintendo at E3. They were still there. I feel like they don't get, I feel like I don't want to say they, I don't want to speak for like the global we. So many of the more popular mainstream podcast media at that time were like, Nintendo's out, they've abandoned E3. Yeah. Like that was such a common thing at that time, and it pissed me off. I was like, they're not. They're right there. They look amazing. I wish I was there.
Speaking of echo chamber on games media, like that's a whole other thing. Donnie, backwards compatibility. Now possible on Xbox One. You play all of your 360, well, many of your 360 games.
Because we're both have Xbox shows, one of the things that I was trying to think about were what were my favorite Xbox moments. And to be honest with you, Sean, I don't have many.
I think that is one of my favorite.
I think it is. I think
moments.
that's one of their standout ones for sure. The other one that I think it was a couple years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years. Well, I guess if we, I'm always counting. I'm not
You
counting the
skipped
one.
last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so maybe 3 or 4 years ago, they did have a show where they showed off like 60 games. They
Yeah.
just went game, 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 game,
2019.
game, game, and it was I was like, this is amazing. Like
Yeah.
they're just killing it over here. So E3, they've had a few E3 moments. I think the Gears 4 reveal was the first one that I don't remember when that was. 2015?
It would have been
When
out
did
by
Gears
then.
4 come out? Well, the
was
console
early.
launched in 14, right?
13.
13? So maybe it was 14.
Yeah, it might have been E3 2014.
They did a Gears reveal where they did Gears Definitive Edition. And then
or Ultimate. Yeah.
And then they were like, and here's Gears 4.
Mm.
And I was like, I remember that day I was like, I fucked up. I need an Xbox. I was so excited because they were like Gears, like Definitive Edition. I was like, oh man, like it's good. Like they got Gears again. But there was a part of me that was like, but it's Gears, it's the old Gears. And then they were like, new Gears. And I remember at the time it was like dark and everything was at night. It was very atmospheric, like almost like horror-ish. I remember the first time I saw Gears 4, I was thinking it was like fear almost. Yeah. I was just like, look at this. Like, what are they doing with this game? And that was another one of those moments where I was like, I have to buy this game. Some of my most pivotal or memorable E3 moments are moments that sold me. They're the moments where I was like, I have to do this. Like, because of this marketing, I feel compelled to go out and support this.
Do you remember seeing Halo for the first time, Halo 5, with Poncho Master Chief?
I do. Did nothing for me.
Right? I think all of the lead up, like
nothing.
Looking back, when you look back on the things that they showed us for Halo 5, it's like maybe the writing was on the wall for that one. Like nothing really worked out.
I got a few things I want to talk about, but I do want to, since before we get too far away from it, I do want to talk about what I consider to be the greatest E3 performance of all time, and was that launch PlayStation E3 show. PlayStation 4 E3 show in 2013.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think they brought so much that day in terms of games, their tech demos, or trailers, but ultimately the thing that everybody remembers, I don't think we've ever seen a moment in marketing where one company just trounced another company so hard.
Yeah, over and over.
390. Yeah, not even just once. They had a whole damn slideshow dedicated to it. They had graphics, just scroll it in left, right, left, right.
Yeah.
It's just like, and they suck because of 1, 2, 3, 4. It was like, we're cheaper. We're better. We're more powerful.
More powerful.
You can play used games. You don't have to have online checks. They just did everything.
You're right. I'm picturing that they literally had. Yeah,
they had graphics. They're real graphics.
Like graphs and charts. Yeah.
They prepared the whole damn thing to just be a counterpunch. And I've never seen anything like it. I pre-ordered my PlayStation 4 the next day.
Yeah.
The next day, that morning.
Yeah. I mean, Microsoft
12
opened
hours
themselves up
later.
to that.
It was
they should have had to do it, right? And it's this whole, like, we talk a lot about, like, our console wars are of course toxic, but like they had to do it's a competition, it's a business. They had to show Microsoft made it so easy for PlayStation to do exactly that. So it's very gratifying in this kind of cheap kind of way that they
have to laugh now, because back then PlayStation was all, you've got to come, like, we're here for you. We're the friends of the gamers. We're gamer friendly. Like, we're fighting the power. Like, and now look at it. Yeah. Look at it now, and it's literally the opposite. So like, if you were excited about PlayStation then like, you would hope for logic reasons that you'd be excited about Xbox now, because they've almost completely flipped places. Yeah. You now have PlayStation being quiet. Like, we saw their crossplay stuff. Like, they're the opposite of what they sold people on.
Well, we'll see if they're even at E3 this year.
And you have Microsoft
doing anything.
Actively trying to do every single thing differently. They're like, across the board, top to bottom, they're trying to do everything most consumer-friendly thing as possible. But I think the thing that we've all learned with regards to both companies is they both just want all the money we can give them.
Of course.
None of them are consumer friendly.
That shouldn't be new. If that's new to people, that's kind of embarrassing. Like, that's just like, if they genuinely tricked you into thinking like it's a friendship type of deal, like, then maybe we need to evaluate other things in your life. Yeah. Well, I was going to take it somewhere else. I don't know if that was because I think about Xbox's stuff. I don't know if you still want to explore PlayStation back in the day, but like, I think like basically when Phil took over, he was like, we're going to have like a moment for that. There's going to be something. You're kind of waiting for like the M. Night Shyamalan twist. Like, okay, Phil, like, what do you got for us at the end, or somewhere in the middle? Like, Mikey Barr is going to show up at some point and go like, yeah, now you can, this is how backwards compatibility works, or you can play games on PC or whatever it was. But that was such a huge deal, and that I felt like maybe a counterpunch to PlayStation. That like they said you can't play any PS3 games on your PS4, but you can play your 360 games. Like, it was them reaching back into, like, they were actually good in the 360 days. People liked the 360.
Yeah.
So it was them kind of like reaching back and finally bringing that forward. And that, I don't know that anybody saw that coming. Like that
was a surprise.
Yeah.
I don't think I was expecting that, nor ever. I don't think I had heard that it was happening beforehand.
Yeah. And then they started to do the whole teasing the next hardware. I don't remember what year it was, but then they did like Project Scorpio, you kind of mentioned, and they did that hype reel of, what was it, 6 teraflops. This thing is a monster, and it was the
look
1X,
at the die. Here's the CPU. Here's a circuit board.
Yeah, that's when we started loving to see the CPUs. Really? And then of course, then we got Scorpio was, wait, let me get it right. Scorpio was the 1X. What the hell was
Scarlet?
This? Scarlet and Lockhart.
Scarlet with 2 T's. The thing that I'll never forget about Scarlet is I tweeted out something about Scarlet at the time. I don't remember what I said. And somebody corrected me and they were like, it's 1 T.
Actually.
And I was so pissed. I was like, actually.
Yeah, double actually.
So I'll never forget it. But yeah, Scarlet with 2 T's.
And Phil let slip when he was talking about, when the first time that he was talking about next generation, he did say consoles.
Yeah.
He meant he actually let and then from there they were pretty tight-lipped about the 2 of them. But the original time that he talked about whatever was coming after the 1X, he mentioned 2. So we kind of had an idea that, and of course when they reveal at the Game Awards, it was called the Series X. Everybody's like, obviously there's going to be a Series S. Like, kind of opened itself up to that. But super interesting, man. So now I just kind of wonder what can they do now? We're less than a year into the.
I would love to see them have so many of the moments that I think about Xbox, the ones that I wrote down, back in pad I wrote down, that Xbox show where they just had a bajillion games. But to be honest with you, like the ones that I think are most, like obviously
Keanu.
Well, Keanu is a big moment for them.
Yeah.
But I was going to say like the Phil Harrison, Don Matrick debacle.
Yeah.
Dude, basically if Phil Harrison shows up at your favorite company's E3 show, like be afraid.
Yeah, trade teams.
He just go worst track record of whatever he supports. Like it's like across the board. PlayStation, Xbox Stadia, like whenever he shows up, man, it's just real bad. But I rewatched some of that Don Matrick one before.
Oh yeah.
And it's that, like, if you're ever gonna stream one, you want to stream the car wrecks. Don't stream the good ones.
Yeah, cringe.
It's so bad. It's unbelievably bad.
Yeah.
Like, and I know we don't have to beat the dead horse, but it is still shocking today. When you rewatch it, you're like, how did any of this get greenlit? Yeah. How did they sit in a boardroom and go, this is a great idea. Let's lead with this. Like, it's almost impossible to believe.
It was the same.
And Phil Spencer was there.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Like, I think he's been respectful about all of that stuff. Like, he would say, like, I was in the room.
Yeah, he was there. Like, we kind of give him, I don't want to say a pass, but we kind of let him off the hook.
Sure.
It may not have been his final decision, but he was there. He announced the price.
I think that can't be understated. The buck stops at whoever's in charge.
Yeah.
Right. Like good or bad. So whoever, if things are going well, then that's, I think the fame and celebration to Phil Spencer is rightly earned now. But he was part of the team, but it was Don Matrick's fault. Everybody knows that. But I feel like it was the same year that you're talking about, that PlayStation 2014, when they just went like, this is so great about PlayStation, bang, bang, bang. And also Call of Duty, the new home for Call of Duty is now on PlayStation. And I remember thinking at that point, like, you really have to transport your mind back in that time, because everybody thought this was going to be the last console generation. Everybody thought that Call of Duty was like maybe seen its peak in the past and was maybe going downhill.
I remember those takes.
Right? And it's like, couldn't be further from the truth.
People are starting to have those takes again. Like with all the studios, everybody's like, well, I guess they're just being Call of Duty. Well, it's going to be bad when Call of Duty goes bad for them. It's like, guys, have you not witnessed the last decade? They could
there's
lose
no
half their
evidence for that.
sales and still be the best franchise in the business.
Well, and also they've just piled everything into Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody's been complaining about. But
8
it's
games in one.
Yeah, it really is. So yeah, I mean, I when do we get like some of those real amazing E3s? I do feel like it's either in the very first one, so what we're coming up to, because we didn't really get it last year,
I'm
or
really
it's
scared
maybe
of this
2-3
one.
years in.
Yeah, I'd be scared of putting too many expectations on this one.
I agree, and
because of the climate of the world we're in, like you can't. That's unfair. Don't go into this one expecting to be wowed and amazed. If it happens, great, but to go in being like, all right,
let's just be happy it's back.
Show me what, like they don't even have consoles right now. Like it's I think there's a strong desire to let go of COVID. It's over. We're done, but it's not.
Yeah, it's definitely
we will
not.
be feeling the ramifications from COVID long after we take our masks off. People have got to remember that.
Definitely, absolute 100% agreement there. The counterpoint that I would like to make is this a point in time where both consoles just go, here's the roadmap? I mentioned before, PlayStation made it.
I think that's what Xbox did last year.
Yeah,
they've already done that.
But I feel like yes and no. I still feel like I know a lot, but I still don't know much.
Really?
And maybe it's because maybe Xbox just isn't doing it as well as PlayStation did it, right? Where they showed you the Death Stranding, and Death Stranding would sort of like appear every once in a while. We could joke about that, but I don't know that it has been, and I don't know actually what the right way to do this is can you destroy the hype for a game by showing it too much? I just felt like what PlayStation
Absolutely
did.
Not. Nope, PlayStation has proven this.
I think that's my point. It ultimately is they showed us Death Stranding. We didn't know what it was. We didn't even know it. I don't even know if we knew what it was called for quite some time. And all of those things. We saw those games over and over and over again, and it worked. That's why I think maybe this E3 could be exciting, because we could see a little bit more of maybe Avowed, or maybe, and I know we're not going to get into predictions or anything like that.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about philosophy, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about Xbox. So let me start with the philosophy. This past week I think it was last week, the week before last, on Nintendo Shack, I brought up a video that Kyle Bossman made years ago talking about the power of unreleased video games.
Right.
And like the hope and the marketing that people put into wanting to love an unreleased video game is like it's really like cyberpunk is it's really unlike anything else. And you know who has really played that fiddle perfectly? PlayStation.
Of course
They always have 2, 3, 4 games that are years away that they just give you a nibble on, and it makes you go, well, I've got to buy a thing because I got to get God of War. And we don't even know if God of War is next year. But there are people that totally bought PlayStation 5s or want to buy PlayStation 5s because that's what they were shown. And when you look back on it, and I don't think it's disingenuous, I think it's smart. When you look back on it and you look at the calendar, and what you end up seeing is that like PlayStation will pair an announcement for a program or a hardware with a big game or two.
Yeah.
And then that game usually gets delayed. But it doesn't matter because they've already got people in before it gets delayed. Like nobody's waiting for the game to release before they buy the console. They're like, I got to get the console because I need, Horizon. And then, 2 years when it finally comes out, like it gets delayed twice, and they're like, well, I finally got it.
But maybe there's an undercelebrated 1-2 punch there, which is, and I wasn't really realizing this until we're having this conversation, which is I would come down on PlayStation. We're going, why is everybody celebrating this E3 conference? Because these games are coming out in 15 years. It's like, that is still true. But what I'm coming around to as we're talking about this is, but then 4 months later, they would release another game that they talked about a couple of months ago. Yeah. Like that they didn't have these droughts. Yep. It wasn't as if they announced the game that would come out 5 years later.
They didn't have
and
the
you
droughts
have nothing for those
Xbox.
5 years.
Xbox went 2 or 3 years there where they basically had nothing.
Yeah.
And that was huge. And that's why they bought as many studios as they did. That's why they're buying studios, because they realize that it's not just about Game Pass, and it's just about their model. They realized they couldn't continue without more first party production. And that's something that it sounds, when you say that now in 2021, people are like, oh, that just makes sense. Yeah. You got to remember, when Xbox launched the Xbox One, that didn't make sense.
Right.
Back then, when they launched the Xbox One, Microsoft bought exclusives. They didn't make them. That was the Peter Moore strategy that worked.
BioShock came from. That's where Mass Effect came from.
For them for 10 years. It's not like a new thing. That's a recent thing. Yeah. So they had to change the way that they do business. Yeah. But PlayStation has played this fiddle perfectly. And
Yeah,
it
really
doesn't
have.
it honestly doesn't matter when games get delayed, because there's so many on the horizon that you're
Mm-hmm.
already in. You're already bought in.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what Xbox did last year. They
Yeah.
showed you the roadmap. Are there surprises that we don't know about? Sure. But we know 80% of what Xbox is planning to do for the next 5 years.
Yeah. I just want
And
more, I don't know. I guess.
Oh, I do know.
I just need to see the next I just need to see the next chapter of that. Right?
Sure.
Like, I don't know. I just need to see, again, what's coming out this year. And this is, I mean, we're getting into a different conversation now, but I still feel like people are still a little bit unclear.
Xbox, because here's the thing, Sean, if you line up all of the studios and you write down what they're working on, you know about 80% of the games that are currently in development.
Sure.
They're known. And you won't find new things until at least half of those games come out. Because they don't have 3 and 4 and 5 different teams working on them. Like,
maybe it's
some
the
of these
gameplay
games
that's
have
missing.
to come. Oh, of course. Now
maybe that's
of
kind of what I'm not landing on.
That is the big part of what Xboxes sell right now.
We've seen logos.
We've seen a lot of logos and a lot of concepts, but a lot of that work is 3 or 4 years away.
Yeah.
And beyond. And like, if you're expecting, Avowed and Hellblade and Fable all come out next year, like, you're not. Like, they're long, long ways away. Perfect Dark. We know what a lot of people are working on. Now, maybe they've got a smaller project. The Bethesda part of this, I think, is the bigger part for Xbox.
Yeah.
The Bethesda acquisition potentially gives them another 2 or 3 things maybe per year that helps them bridge to that point.
Sure.
Because there's a really, really strong Xbox roadmap 2023, 2024, and beyond. Like, once you get there, but it seems far right now. But at the same time, just as you mentioned PlayStation, there are still games that were announced for Xbox Series consoles that never launched. We don't have the Ascent. We don't have, what was the weird, crazy alien one that threw everybody out? What was the name of that one?
I can't remember what you're talking about.
Can't even remember. You remember? Like the weird dong thing that came out. It was all alien, paranormal. Scorn. Right? That never came out. Crossfire hasn't come out. Like, half of that show that we were expecting at launch, half of those launch games haven't come out.
Yeah.
So if you're expecting something at E3, I think it'll be a lot of those finally getting dated.
Yeah.
And finally coming out. And then maybe there's 1 or 2 that bridges to that kind of that next era. And I think Bethesda is real important to that, because they need a Bethesda game or 2 for those next couple years.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the reason I was all series and everything, I mean, they had me at Fable, but the idea of Fable and Forza and Perfect Dark and like everything that they're doing internally, I'm all for.
Sign me up.
I'm all on board.
Plus everything else is coming to Game Pass.
Game Pass,
like, it really is really, it's just going to be a Game Pass presentation. I think that'll be what we see change with Xbox, and that'll be the differentiation between the 3.
They'll still buy a couple of Game Pass games too.
That's what I'm expecting. I'm totally expect that.
They'll fill that gap
stop.
with games, third-party games. They'll just grab a few and they'll be like, and they're in Game Pass. Which I think at this point, people are expecting Battlefield to be announced for Game Pass.
Yep.
That's a big deal. And I think if they can grab 2 or 3
We're getting into prediction territory here.
Well, if they grab 2 or 3 of those, plus the stuff that we don't have dated, like, it's fine. They're fine.
Ubisoft service is now included in Game Pass.
Was that your big prediction?
I don't know. I feel like there's rumblings of that. I feel like some people.
There's definitely rumblings like that.
Ubisoft saying to be included.
You can be excited with us, Dev. All you got to do is be excited. Just get excited. You should be excited. You want to see Horizon? You want to see God of War? Get excited. PlayStation's got stuff.
I want to see a limited, or it doesn't have to be limited, but a special edition console for PlayStation. I want PS5 to look a little different.
I threw that into their TGS conversation this morning when they were talking about Tokyo Game Show, and I was like, face plates.
Yeah. Just do it.
I'll import them.
Just do it. Yeah. Whatchamacallit? Design labs. Do it like Design Labs. Make your own.
That's a good one. That's definitely that's a really, really good one.
I love a Game Pass branded Series X, says Ryan Turford in the chat. That's such a good idea.
I wrote down Nintendo 2006, but this is kind of before you, when you started doing E3's, right?
Gosh, what the heck were they even like?
They launched the Wii. And they showed Twilight Princess, Galaxy, Smash Brothers, Fire Emblem, Prime 3, and Wii Sports.
Holy shit!
And that was my takeaway. Now, I find it, one of the things that I think is a little weird for me is, I think in hindsight, people, and I think you agree with me, so I don't think this is a crazy take. I was really, really into the Wii, and I love my Wii.
Yeah,
and
same.
I played that damn thing religiously.
Yeah. Zach
I
and Wiki.
feel like a lot of folks don't. They say they didn't or they didn't. They either say they didn't or they didn't. Now, like now, people kind of write off the Wii. I think we agree.
Yeah,
with that, right?
I've heard that.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
that motion console thing. It's like,
Yeah,
but
they
back
kind of
then,
laugh about
kind
it.
of wasn't.
Yeah.
And that E3 sticks with me in a major way. I was like, that E3 brought it. Could you
Oh my
imagine
gosh.
today
Yeah.
if Nintendo was like, Smash Brothers, Zelda game, Fire Emblem game, Metroid game? like they brought it hard. That's why I was all in on my Wii, man. I was all in back then.
I want to quickly look up them because I'm going to forget the greatest lineup in Xbox history was like Gears. It was Halo 5, Rise of the Tomb Raider. And there was, I think, Rare Replay.
Talk about
I think was
such
part
a
of this.
giant announcement becoming such a huge problem.
Yeah,
They had Rise of the Tomb Raider exclusive.
Man. Yeah, I thought that was such a. You know what? Because I always played Tomb Raider.
PlayStation had Rise of the Tomb Raider exclusive, it'd be the greatest thing ever. People would celebrate it. Like, yay! But Xbox does it, and everybody hated them for it.
Let me see here if I can. I can't believe how this is not. I'm not able to pull this up really quickly. It was the company debut world gameplay of Crackdown 3, Scalebound, Killer Instinct 3, and Quantum Break. Is some of these things in 2015 that they talked about.
Quantum Break.
Yikes! No, Halo World Championship. Oh my!
Yeah,
gosh.
they've had a few moments. You remember they had that one year. I'm just because I was going to tell you, like, one of the cool things that they did was the Lego car, which you got to sit in, right?
Yeah.
But you remember, like back before that, they actually announced like Porsche having a car, like in real life, that was in Forza. Like they were launching the car, and it went on for like 10 minutes. And I think that was the moment where it took until the Lego car to make me care about them putting a car on stage, because they did it every year. But that Porsche announcement, I was like, dude. And honestly, the first thing that I wrote down, Sean, I wish I could share my notes. I've got worse E3 moments, and the first thing I wrote down in parentheses was read the room.
Yeah.
For far too often, E3 has done some, like, I don't know where they come up with the ideas. I think so many of like these vaporware games that we talk about, games that never show up, I think it's just to fill time. Like they feel they have to have an hour-long show. They can't just do 23 minutes or something like that. But
yeah.
They do we've had some really weird crap happen at E3.
What about Just Dance launching into every Ubisoft?
Just Dance? Well, even just their regular Just Dance presentations, so they dancing mascots and stuff come out, which I personally don't hate, but I know a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But when I think of like weird read the room stuff, I think of Wii Music.
Yeah.
Right. Or do you remember when Jedi Fallen Order was announced?
Oh my god! Well, that's the EA, of course.
Dude,
they just walk over.
So cringy.
Legendary
just sitting there like, hey,
developer, legendary.
Are you working on a Star Wars game?
Franchise?
Like, yeah, maybe. You're like, you want to say anything about it or talk about it or be excited about it at all? No.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. And it's like you're in full control of that.
I think almost every multiplayer game demo at E3 is awful.
What about I remember Sea of Thieves very vividly when they had, I don't think it was the reveal, but I think it was the second time that we would have seen Sea of Thieves. They had all the YouTubers. Everybody hated that. Well, I don't think that they were. I kind of dug it. I actually thought I was like, oh, okay, I could see Sea of Thieves actually being good. And I was the only one who thought
it was a Battlefield one. It's like every time every time we do a presentation that focuses on what real multiplayer looks like, they always come off so heavy-handed and scripted.
They got their mics. Okay, I'm going in now.
Watch your six, guys. You know, it's like nobody talks like that. And they got the little camera and the thing. It's like, what are you guys doing? You know, like, those always come off bad. Sean, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Kinect.
Oh yeah, Milo.
Kinectimals, Disneyland. Milo,
of course, yeah.
Milo
won me over, dude. I thought that was the most amazing thing. Absolutely got me.
She draws on the paper and hands it, and I was like, "What is this?" I totally had to connect the day it came out. I was so excited, and Sean, so let down.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I did Kinect Adventures. I was doing the stupid thing where you lift your leg, and I was like, "This is the dumbest thing. I can't believe I bought into this."
Dude, they got me twice with Kinect. Because they got me with they got me with Kinect on the Xbox One. I'm like, yes, this is why I want.
That was one of the reasons I flipped. I went to PlayStation.
They
got me. They're not getting me again.
They got me twice.
They're not getting me again.
They're like, this is the one. It's a better camera. This one can actually hear. You can turn your Xbox on with it. Like I was like, that's what I want.
We talk about PlayStation and these demos that they have for Last of Us and Horizon and God of War and stuff.
Yeah.
Xbox trotted out like kindergartners with connectables, and they were like, "Hey, we got to chase the ball."
Yeah.
Oof. Nintendo hasn't even exactly read the room.
Yeah.
This isn't the place to make your blue ocean wide strategy, approach. Like this isn't the place. E3 is about the people that love this format and that buy all the consoles or as many as they want and buy lots and lots and lots of games. Yeah. And it's okay. Like marketing doesn't have to be for everybody. But at this show, when you're doing this presentation, you should cater that presentation to this room. Doesn't mean you can't do Just Dance.
Yeah.
You can just read the room. It
can be memorable for all the wrong reasons, but is there ever, is it, some people say there's no such thing as bad press. Some people say
I think in video games.
Maybe not so much in video games. I don't know if it applies.
Definitely in video games, there definitely is. Like mobile apps, smart screen, or
again, EA did this whole thing. A lot of the smart glass. I was all in on smart glass.
No,
man. I wanted because I liked DS stuff. I liked having the double screen. I liked the Wii U. I wanted to play Madden,
the Wii U too. Yeah.
But I wanted to play Madden and pick my plays on my phone. Or like check my inventory or my map on my phone and have that as like a second. What we got was like basically like a remote control that you
didn't work half the time.
Didn't really work. So, but I wanted that second screen experience. Like I was all in on the second screen experience.
I felt like there was a really long period there where Microsoft was really chasing those things. They were chasing gimmicks. Yeah. And the Kinect was successful for them. We should bring that up. Like, as much as you look back on it, you're like, this is terrible. They made $1 bajillion off Kinect. Like, it sold like hotcakes. People don't give them credit for that. They act like it was a flop.
I'm so disappointed in me. Well, I don't know off the top of my head when they did the PSVR thing. They're throwing Frisbees back and forth. But, like, there's laughable moments all over the place.
But the Wii U was one that I was really sold on. Not just because I liked the Wii, and not just because I remember their Nintendo Land demo. They showed that Nintendo Land game where you shoot arrows at the other boat. And then there was this moment where they're holding the controller, shooting it, and then they point the controller away from the television. Yeah. And that was the moment I was like, oh, that's really cool. Because now you're playing the game off the TV screen. You're talking about the dual screen ability. That's the thing that Smart Glass never was. Yeah. It was never a part of the game.
That's what I wanted. Exactly.
And when they did oh, man, Sean, there's never been a moment.
U?
There was never a moment where I was more sold on anything when they hit the damn golf ball off the gamepad.
Dude, I was just going to say that.
I lost my freaking mind. I was like, I have to have one.
But why? But why? And was that vaporware? Did that ever happen?
No, that happened. It just was really bad. Actually, the motion tracking in Wii Sports U sucked. But the marketing got me. It got me hard. I was that was another moment where I felt, because everybody hated the Wii U's announcement and they panned it. Yeah. And I loved it. I was all on board. I wanted it completely, wholeheartedly. I was really into it. So that was one day that and it sucks because there are those days where you're really into something and everybody isn't. Or vice versa. One of those days was the Muppet Show for me.
Oh, yeah. I loved it.
The Muppets are great. Sean hated the show. I think the show was one of Nintendo's worst shows of all time.
Well, I mean, it was entertaining.
Just because they had Muppets?
Yeah, I love it. Dude, I love the Muppets
more than that, dude.
More than a normal person. He said Nintendo 64. He did.
Dude,
I love that.
So I wrote this down. Nintendo, they did Star Fox Zero, Mario and Luigi Paper Jam, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, Federation Force. They announced the Donkey Kong amiibo. That was that E3.
Yeah. Good point.
Only good thing that came out of that E3 was Fire Emblem Fates. That was the day that I wrote like 8-paragraph manifesto of how terrible Nintendo was at E3 that year on the Merit of the Games forums. Yeah. I was like, guys, this one hurts.
Was it the next
year?
This
is crushing.
Was it the next year that they did like the Robot Chicken thing?
I think it was the year before. The year before. Yeah. Now the Robot Chicken thing on Converse, the Robot Chicken thing is it's probably my pick for favorite E3 ever.
Yeah.
That one was just amazing.
And speaking of like a little nod, like if you knew what Robot Chicken was, then you're all in on that. But if you don't know what it is, and you're kind of like, well, this is weird. This is a little quirky.
Oh, I think if you told with the robot
you just have
chicken
a deeper
thing,
appreciation for it.
Of course, absolutely, I agree with you. But the robot chicken thing, Nintendo brought people in a way that they've never done before, and I want to say like none of the other publishers ever have.
Yeah,
like they were able to make fun of themselves.
Yeah,
they were able to bring in their own jokes, like the little behind the scenes, like Link getting donuts in the break room and stuff. Like that stuff is endearing. That is charming. That's that Nintendo ability.
Bill, you mean getting the donuts?
I'm sorry?
Do you mean Bill getting the donuts?
No. There's a cutscene in there where Link is like in the break room. There's like coffee and donuts, and he was like, "Oh, right, I'm here." And then like Toon Link shows up, and he's like, "I thought you were gonna be here." Like,
dude, I'm scrubbing through it right now. There totally is. I wonder if that. Oh,
there's so
funny.
many little moments like that, and then you've got the Reggie ones where he's being heckled by the fans.
Yeah.
Where's Mother 3? It's another Mario game. And he's like, actually, we're not going to announce
literally
just what
I'm scrubbing through it right now, and he literally said, "Oh, it's another Mario game."
And then Mario's like, "What? There's not a Mario game?" And he like leaves.
So good.
Because it was the best.
And he burns them alive. Reggie turns into Fire Reggie, pulls out a fire flower, and then he burns the guy in the crowd. Yeah, this is good.
That E3 was Devolver-esque.
Really, it really was. It looks like a Devolver. You're right.
It was incredible. I love that E3. And here's the thing. It doesn't even matter what they showed that year. I loved that E3. And I think that E3 was the one that they did Smash Brothers, I remember, and Amiibo. Mm-hmm. Is that the same one?
I don't even know.
It doesn't even matter because that was incredible. That E3 alone was incredible. Like Reggie lit a fan on fire with a fireball.
Yeah, like we need to get back to that. Like,
that is video games. Like that was so video games.
Yeah.
And you're talking about like all these shows being pompous and all these theaters. That was like quintessential video games feeling like video games. And it was fun. And that was the best. That was like peak Nintendo.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. Holy crap. Well, who knew? We went everywhere, man. I think do you still have more?
Let me check. Let's see here. I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good.
Because I think I've had to go to the bathroom since an hour ago.
Let's see the beer, man. He's going right through.
I know, right through me. Yeah, I should have grabbed a second one.
It's fun. I really like this. I like that we did this.
Yeah.
I'm always excited for E3. I cannot wait. To... Oh, no, hang on a second. Is there anything left? Yes, there's something left, damn it. We didn't talk about Devolver. Jesus.
Oh, no, I tried to kick it off with Devolver. I tried.
Nina Struthers, the best show in video games. Mm-hmm. They have been doing this for 5 years now? They have an ongoing narrative. There's like a Devolver universe of E3 happening. Yep. They all tie together. What was the thing that they did the first year? Oh, damn it. Hang on.
She was just standing there like they just did a pre-recorded.
They announced
as if it was live.
Loot box coin. Their first year, they did a whole show making fun of loot boxes.
Oh my gosh, I don't. Well, then was it the last time they had one? They released a game. Yeah, you could go into like their I can't remember what they called it, the Devolver like game experience.
Yeah, I played the whole thing. I don't remember what they named it there, but you can go download it. E3. It's free. They released a game about going to E3 and shooting robots. Mm-hmm. But the last one was, I mean, that's where Eat the Hype comes from. If people wonder where I got the name, Devolver's last show was, I mean, all their shows are parodies of themselves, but the last show they leaned into it in a way that I don't think anybody could have ever expected.
Yeah, I think there was a third one.
They basically just mock the entire industries. Yeah, they mock us for loving these things that get announced without dates, without prices, without gameplay. Like they're like, it doesn't matter if the games are even good.
Yeah.
Just that we announce them. Mm-hmm. And they're right. They're so right. Damn right. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if they're good. It's just...
This entire conversation is proof of that. This last 2 hours is absolutely proof of that. Yeah.
And they go so hard. Dev, I love all the exclamation points. So Devin and I have always taken the Devolver show at PSVG.
Devolver. Dev.
Nice. And we always do it together. And one of our favorite ones was a couple years ago, they had a wrestling tournament. And in between the wrestling tournament, they had like these late night skits, and there was like barely any games shown.
Oh my
and they had these stupid games shown where they were like, scratch your screen for the code. And people are trying to click on the thing. And like none of it made any sense. And it's just nonsense. If you've ever wanted to see shenanigans and dumbness in video games, you have to check out the Devolver show. They did one of their shows where all of their crowd were like paper cutouts, and they acted like they had all these fans, and they were like cheering. They were just like cardboard cutouts.
It's excellent. It's actually
art,
dude. Well, the first one now like I said before, we kind of come to expect certain things from some of these companies. But Devolver is so new at this. It was maybe 4 years ago. Last year doesn't count. They've done 3 of these, I think, where they said, yeah, we're going to totally have an E3 presentation, and everybody's like, who is who are you guys? What even are you doing? And then because it was so late at night, it was kind of that like.
And
it's
if
kind of like when you throw a party and like something happens after the party,
like
and you kind of hear rumblings of them.
They publish a lot of indie games, and they're very,
of course.
I think they're very good at it. They pick a lot of very good indie games to publish.
Well, in a particular style, as it turns out, I think you can expect kind of like this. It's almost like
I love Devolver games. That's another reason we don't like it just because their E3 show is crazy.
Yeah,
I think Dev and I both genuinely enjoy Devolver games.
Yeah,
so I almost buy everything they put out.
I don't even know what I was trying to say, but
well, you were saying like
just that it was unexpected, and you kind of
heard
you heard like the day after it happened. You're like, hey, did you hear about the Devolver show? And everybody's like, no, like why would I watch that? And it's like, you got to watch it.
I think
you won't believe it.
I think the first one that they had happen, like when people started because if I remember correctly, Dev might refresh my memory here. Oh, dude, Egg Shin. What's up, dude?
Holy.
I miss you, bro.
Return of the Mac. Holy crap. Good to see you, Egg Shin. Wow.
That first year, Dev and I, we stayed up and we streamed the whole thing. And I think the show started like midnight. We were up like 2 a.m. talking this nonsense.
Exactly.
And then you're right. The next day, people were like, did you see this Devolver show that happened last night? And here's the funny thing about that video. I think that video for that year was like our most seen E3 video. It was me and Dev losing our minds of this dumb Devolver show that was happening. We're like, this is the stupidest thing in the world.
Totally over the top. Like, who is this woman even? Like, they did to come out and completely nail it. Like, they didn't have to work up to that. They'd never done anything like that before. I'm a little taken by the fact that Egg Shen is just like popping up out of nowhere. I feel like it's been years. Wow. Holy cow.
Yeah, man.
Devolver.
He needs to be here for Mario Golf. It's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's happening. Holy crap. I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to talk to you about, but it has slipped my mind after Devolver.
Take a moment. We're not in any rush. You don't have to fill the air. Take a moment.
I got to go to the bathroom.
Have that pregnant pause. We'll just sit here and be quiet. People wonder if the show's
Can I go to the bathroom and think about it?
Sure. I'll take questions from the chat.
Honestly, you want to take questions from the chat?
I'll take questions from the chat. Talk
okay,
to me.
I'll text Chelsea and see how she's doing too. We'll see how we're on.
All right. So Egg Shin, dude, thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with Sweet Hangs. On this show, we're talking about E3. About our favorite moments from it, some of our least favorite moments, why we like it, why we're excited. I can't sit here and just vamp on my own, so I need questions. I need interaction from you guys. Ask me questions pertaining to the show while we fill the air for Sean. Otherwise, I will sit here in complete silence and make folks wonder if the show has ended prematurely or if their internet connection has went out. So yeah, I'm looking over my notes. I got all of the things. Great to be back. Great to see you and the Capri. Dude, like, we really missed you, man. You gotta get on the Mario Golf that's coming. We're about a month out. Very excited for that. I need something to get excited about because the games just haven't been doing it for me. Let's see here. Oh, we got 2 great questions. Tell us about the car and tell me why I should get Mario Golf. Okay, Dev, you should get Mario Golf because you love the multiplayer stuff. And there's never been a more successful multiplayer game around PSVG than Mario Golf because we have the ability to play whenever you want. So I can stand up a tournament, which I will be doing every week, and everybody can play throughout the week whenever you can. You can play on Friday night, Tuesday night. We don't have to be together. We don't have to do it all. So we can always do that. That's why you should be getting Mario Golf. Not to mention, it's an excellent golf game. The mechanics, Camelot, they make some of the best golf games in the world. They used to make the Hot Shots golf games of old that I love so much. And they'll have they'll have tons of content. They'll have tons of courses, tons of characters. It's just really, really great. Plus, you got a Switch, man. You don't even have any games for it. You're not playing it, so you should get it just for that. You should.
Mario Golf is required.
Yeah, it's required stuff. I mean, I'm stoked. And then Kinemiro, tell you about the car. I just buffed the chrome rims on it yesterday. I've had it tinted. I've had the exhaust done. I've got new side marker lights on the way. I've got hood pins that I'm still waiting on. And I put in a new head unit. I went Sony pony. It's such a pony for the guy. I got a Sony stereo that I put in there, with a backup camera and all that good stuff.
Love it, man.
Welcome back.
Got another
Sean.
beer. I really had to go.
Nice.
Like that was an epic, just like number one. I was like, man,
that happens.
Here
Piper, it is a Challenger. I
like
showed my in-laws the car yesterday, and they were like, "Wow."
Yeah.
And I took the family. It was the first time I took the whole family out in it, and I was getting in on the real estate. You know, Sean, with those muscle cars, you got to get it like 7,000 RPM. Really clean the engine out. Like you gotta.
Obviously,
you kind of got to give it. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that. I had the same. I had the same thing with my Toyota Corolla. Yeah, same thing. My Volkswagen Jetta. Same idea.
Matt sent me like his station wagon, a picture, and then he posted an article about how it has the same engine as some other car in the 90s, and I was just like, this is sad. This makes me sad.
He's a frugal man. I appreciate.
It's a cool ride. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I have a minivan. I appreciate the station wagon.
Yeah.
It's just like the whole, but the engine in the station wagon is cool. It's like, just enjoy the station wagon.
Bit of a stretch.
Yeah,
I couldn't remember what I was trying to tell you before. It's totally gone.
Okay.
I don't even know if it was a thing. Might have made it up altogether. I got a peach sour beer from Granville Island. Yeah, I don't even know. It's very sour. It'll make you pucker up a little bit.
Yeah, because when I think peach sour, I think of like a rum or a vodka drink, but that's an actual beer.
It's a
which I mean, there's a beer for everything. I don't do beer, so
yeah. No, this is very tasty. Granville Island is it's a spot in Vancouver. It's weird because I don't think it's really an island. It's just a spot in the city of Vancouver. It's like you can go shopping. Obviously, there's a couple breweries.
Maybe
so
it's like a social island or a metaphorical island.
Yeah, maybe kind of like Vita Island,
natural island or something. Yeah, like Vita Island.
It's just people who know, they go.
Yeah,
they go there.
Speaking E3 moments, I used to hate like back in the PlayStation 3 days when they were like, "And here's the Vita segment of the show." It's just like, oh.
I know you kind of hope, dude. There is this whole like there's an evolution of even the predictions that would come around with E3, which is part of the season that we talked about last week. Yeah. And there's like, how many mentions of Vita would Sony do? Would it be like more or less than 7 mentions of Vita?
Deep cut stuff right there.
Even probably even Podcast Beyond. Yeah. Stuff like that. And then it would kind of carry over into VR, and then it just kind of went to, they're not going to talk about it at all. There's going to be no Vita.
Yeah, I remember that for a couple years there. They're like, there's got to be Vita something, right?
It's so sad.
No, there wasn't.
Well, and then they kind of saved it to like PlayStation Experience. I remember, like, dude, like COVID hopefully is a bit of a reset in a lot of ways on just a lot of the things that we do when maybe things kind of get back to normal. But like, it did seem like we were hitting like a critical mass of shows, right? Like we were all kind of complaining about there's too many things to keep up with. There's E3, there's all the PAX, there's TGS, like Tokyo Game Show.
Yeah, but the PAX, I never said that. I never thought that. The PAX aren't shows you need to keep up with because nobody makes announcements.
Sure, but, I'm just kind of like listing off.
You did just kind of jog my memory. I was thinking, I said earlier, I don't think Xbox has a lot of like super fun, memorable E3 moments. That's because a lot of their moments come in other places. Like when I think of like Xbox as a big like stage moments and something, you think of like Gamescom or the Game Awards. Like they almost do better at those other shows.
Yeah. Yeah, Game Awards, especially with the Series X, like that genuinely blew me. And I mean, like I'm partial to 2019's E3 because I was there.
Yeah,
right. So the Keanu thing like hit even harder
in the room.
Dude, I actually almost fainted. Like I'm not because I was screaming so loud and I jumped up like I had like a blood in my head problem. I really did, because I remember, this is my experience, and I wish Luke was here to tell the story.
I wanted to talk to you about this. I'm glad you brought this up. We're going to keep the show going, Sean.
Okay. So the whole Cyberpunk thing happens, and then it's sort of that weird kind of after trailer part where you're like, I thought we were done talking about Cyberpunk, but now something else is happening. And you see like this guy's crotch and some voice is talking and he bends down.
Cyberpunk.
And I screamed the word, I wish the mics kind of picked it up, because I screamed the word Keanu. Like I was up before anybody else, like maybe 1 second before anybody else. And I jumped up and said, Keanu, and then takes off his glasses and everybody else loses it. And by the time everybody else is losing it, I'm Donnie, I'm telling you the truth. I'm holding onto the chair in front of me. I'm like, I cannot believe this. And then he's over there. Okay. He's just like walking through the doors.
Let's talk about this. because one of the points, and I didn't write it down, so I didn't remember it, but you did jog my mind because I was thinking about it. Because there's something that bothers me a little bit about E3.
Damn it! That was my hype moment.
No. I want you to have. I'm happy that you had it. Like, I want to talk to you about this. This is actually the reason why I'm talking to you about it. So, back when E3 was early, it was a press only event, right? Mostly, it's just press.
Sure. Yeah.
We get these reaction shots and and you remember they were like back when E3 started, it was like an E3 ballroom. It was like 60 people in there.
Yeah. Right. The circle tables.
Yeah, it wasn't the stadium event that we see it as now. It was like just a few people. But we see the reactions of the press. These are like supposed to people have non-bias and stuff, and they're thrilled.
That was the weird part. That was the weird part about going to. So as in the Xbox One, we weren't there as press. We were there with FanFest, and FanFest was like right at the start. Like we got the best seats in the house, which was awesome. We could react as fans. Bethesda, we were there as fans. I'm sorry, we were there as press with press, and that felt very strange. And it was not the same. We were around people who were not like hooping and hollering about all the things. That was happening somewhere else, and you could hear it happening somewhere else. And I'm not sure if the entire theater was all press, but that one felt very, very different for me.
But I think in those old Game Informer magazines and stuff, and you see pictures of people reacting to like a Zelda moment, right? And they're really
the peer, like from IGN,
Peer Snyder, like when you see those moments, I think it's a little hypocritical that these folks that have had access to E3 for so long now complain that so much of the public has access. Yeah. Because all the public is wanting to do is have that moment that you had like they had before.
Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you on that.
And I think it's really strange and a little sad that they're like, they're letting all these fans in. It's not what it used to be. And it's like there are people that see this, that have lived it, that have followed it for a decade. All they want to do is go and have that experience that you have already had. And
I feel like that could be the future of E3.
When you have a testimonial like yours, Sean, you're like, I was there, I was jumping, I was so excited. That euphoria. I do think there's I don't want to say a downside. I think you got to be a little reserved. You don't want to just like lose it for everything just because you're there, of course. But when you genuinely find yourself in that moment, like totally if you were in the PlayStation 3, or you were in the PlayStation movie theater when they were like $3.99 used game, like, and you're excited, and your friends are excited, and they're yelling, and you're yelling, like that's a magical experience that before was like gated off to a certain select people. Yeah, and now it's opening to more and more people, and as opposed to like throwing stones at that, I think that should be celebrated and pushed. Like it should be more open. And then that's one of the things where I've always in the last few months since E3 is kind of coming back, because people wrote it off for dead, and you know this because you've heard me talk about this since it went away. So almost 2 years now, I'm like, E3 doesn't need to go away. It needs to come back. It needs to be digital. You bring more people to this than you're currently doing, like more accessible, more open. Because it's that moment that you have when you explain that story to somebody, that's a moment that will always, that's a feeling, not a moment. That's a feeling that you will always come back to, and you'll always chase that feeling. Like it's hard to explain to somebody that doesn't video game, but they'll understand it. When you get somebody like that, that's like a customer for life type moment. Yeah. You will have to severely screw that up not to earn their business from you, because it's such a rewarding
kind of like what Cyberpunk did.
Yeah.
It's amazing really, that's actually tied to the same moment.
Yeah, I know.
It's like they really did.
You're like Keanu, and it's like if you just think of Keanu and not Cyberpunk, that's an amazing moment. But when you mix in Cyberpunk, you're just like, poor Cyberpunk.
God, it was bad. It was bad. It was bad for the game right afterwards, which was Spiritfarer, which was a game like any game that came out that they talked about immediately after Cyberpunk, like nobody remembers. But it turned out to be a very good game. Spiritfarer was an excellent game, and that would be like is that just where the money comes from? Like the way that they talk about public going to E3 is to be at the conference center. They don't generally talk about like the press conference at all. But maybe that's just where it ends up going. That it like you could sell it at an arena with this stuff. Like you could sell Staples Center. Not just.
I think PlayStation was forward thinking and opening up to other theaters. Like it can be an event like
big time. Oh yeah.
And here's the thing: if you pack those theaters with fans that pay to see it, those are like-minded people. You can have that experience even if you're not in the same room.
Yeah.
You could still have that Sean-like moment.
Yeah.
And I want to see more of that happen.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I want it. I never want it to go away. I never have. I never will. I want it to be a thing.
I remember fighting Colin Moriarty about it. Like, I was like, don't you think it should come back? And he was all like, no. And I was like, let me rephrase the question.
Yeah.
Let me try this again.
Yeah. No, he's said that quite a lot. Even still,
Yeah.
I think he still holds on to that opinion. But it can be different. It's still special.
I hate
but maybe
that.
we're wishful thinking.
I feel like the people that are saying it should go away are the people that have already been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't feel like I hear
out of the way
a whole lot from people that have never been.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they want to go.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that means anything. I do want to point that out. The people that I know of that are like, it needs to die and go away forever, those are the people that I think have covered it professionally, and they've been there on site for a couple times. And it's like, you're really missing out on like a whole other experience that you value, like they love, right? You'll even hear them talk about it. They're like, boy, I remember my first E3. It was magical.
Yeah.
But it needs to die and go away forever. You know, and it's like, what the hell?
Maybe you need to be removed from the equation.
Yeah, maybe you just don't need to work E3 no more.
Dev's in the chat and he says that PlayStation experience needs to come back, and that's exactly it. Like that's that. Yeah. Fan Fest is kind of that as well. Like that's that. Just everybody can get excited about it. Put everybody in the same room. They'll all scream at the same stuff. Get excited.
Yeah, because like the Nintendo store in New York City, right? Yeah. They show the direct, and then what do we get? We always get that reveal of the reaction to that. Imagine if there was a Nintendo store in every state that was doing all that at the same time,
or in the theater, or in the theater. Yeah, that was legit. Like when I came back home from E3 in 2019, I was looking for reactions that somehow captured like how I felt about it. Like some people like, oh, it's Keanu, like or even worse is like, oh, it's like that John Wick guy.
Oh, dude, Caroline went freaking bananas.
some were amazing.
Xbox.
Some were there was I had it as a pinned tweet for the longest time, and that's how I discovered Maximilian Dude on Twitch, because he had like a room full of people, and they just like all of them, they all lost it like it kind of just talked about. So yeah, you talk about like you chase that feeling again. That's why I think that's just why reaction videos in general are, whether it's E3 or not, I think that's just why they're so popular, because people want to relive that. And I absolutely, it was so palpable.
That's why we stream. The reason why we stream is because I want to enjoy those moments and talk about them. I want to make fun of them as they happen. I want to cheer while they happen. I want to hate on them as they happen with friends. Yeah. It's more fun. It's communal. Yeah. It's more fun to do with people.
We sit on the couch together.
Yeah. I don't want to stream Devolver by myself.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit there and watch it by myself. I do want to sit there and watch it with Dev. Yeah. You know, it's a different thing.
Special time, man. We're less than a month away from E3. I'm really excited. Well,
I'm excited.
At least Ubisoft's anyways. Who knows who else is coming?
They'll all be there.
We know who's coming. We know who's coming, but yeah. I'd like to see PlayStation there as well.
I would love to see PlayStation.
I want them to do something, whether they call it E3 or not.
Yeah, they don't have to be at E3, but like do your direct or whatever the same day.
Yeah. You know, bring it on. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. Did you finish your drink? House Party 2022 says Dev in the chat.
I did finish it.
Book it. This is good
for sure.
See, we did our E3 thing. I've got nothing on deck for next week. I don't know what we're not gonna make any promises for next week. We'll see. Good. We'll see what happens. This is good. All right, man. Well, I'd cheers you, but you have an empty glass, so
I'm out.
This was fun. Well, I need to get in my onesie though. You're in your Xbox onesie. I'll get into my onesie a little later on tonight. That'll be
so comfy.
Yeah, it's good.
My wife just had just pulled it out of the dryer, so it was like all warm and toasty.
Ooh, see, it was a hot day today. You know, it was probably like 70. So
I don't know. I gotta get in my hoodie, Sean. So yeah.
I'll put the kids to bed, and that'll be that. All right, cool, man. That was it. Sweet hangs.
Talk to you later. Sweet
See
hangs.
ya.